Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Naruto had to marry Tsunade because of a truce. The Uchihas have a history of madness, and no one knew it better than Naruto, fifth son of Taijima Uchiha. Amidst his father's mad ambition and his eldest brother Madara's thirst for revenge against the Senju and the entire world, it will take every ounce of Naruto's charm and skill at arms to save the greatest clan of the ninja world, and that still might not be enough. Welcome aboard! Chapter 10. Cadmean Victory. He saw enemies all around him, waiting for the perfect moment to strike him down. Their eyes full of anger, hatred, and utter loathing. Their swords and sickles eager to taste his blood, and their pitiful killing intent making a mocking effort to make him cower. Glancing at the few allies he had left, he saw they were preparing themselves to die. The responsibility of this failure lied on his shoulders, for he should have known the Yamanaka could do something like this. If it had been Madara in his place, his brother would have butchered their top leadership, making the remaining younger ones bend the knee. But Naruto had done the opposite. He had gone with his heart, sparing all Yamanaka except for those who perished in battle. He had not even slaughtered any Yamanaka civilians and allowed them to go back to their peaceful lives. He had allowed his enemies to surrender instead of killing them all. It was the good thing to do, the honorable thing, but there was no place for such things in this world. He could already imagine his father's disappointed eyes looking down on him. The old man would have taught the Yamanaka a much harsher and bloodier lesson than his foolish young son. And now his own clansmen had to die, their only fault being the fact that their leader was soft of heart. His friends, his aunt, his clansmen, and even their Hatake allies were all in danger of annihilation because of him. It was burden that weighed his ever-solemn heart. Even Kurama. He watched his enemies that only continued to outnumber his forces. Whatever his mistakes, he was still the leader of his army, and it was his duty to get them to safety, no matter the cost. Tekka. The said older Uchiha warily glanced at him but was surprised when Naruto pointed him in the opposite direction, leading towards the Yamanaka town. Get our people and the Hatakes out of here. I'll hold the line, instructed Naruto. Taijima-sama and Madara-sama will have our heads if we leave you behind, pointed Tekka hesitantly, aware about the wrath they would incur should those two learn what happened to the kinslayer. Are you disobeying me? Tekka Uchiha flinched when Naruto's cold eyes landed on him in full force, making him gulp. He glanced at his own clansmen and the Hatake, who looked quite relieved with the new option provided to them. Still, a question lingered on Tekka's mind. They'll kill you, you know that, right? Asked Tekka seriously, glancing at the Senjus and their allies who were now starting to get closer. For his part, the kinslayer merely glanced at his ancestral sword before looking back at the enemies with a cocky smirk. I've won more single combat than any of these tree huggers. I can handle them, promised Naruto. Tekka could not argue against that point. Whatever sins the kinslayer had committed in his life, there was not a single Uchiha who doubted his fighting prowess. Seeing Naruto was not going to change his mind, Tekka glanced at him one last time while also giving a subtle signal to his allies to get ready to flee. Any last words? Naruto would have laughed if not for the situation, because he remembered asking the same thing to many of his enemies before they died. Tekka, in his own way, was asking him if he had any message for his family. His father would not be much affected, but no words would be enough to console Madara or even Naori. But still he wanted to humor Tekka nonetheless. I am a ninja. I shall die as 1 inch. Tekka's eyes slightly widened, his lips parting to say something before he abruptly stopped himself. For the first time in his eyes, there was an emotion other than loathing for this young boy. We will avenge you, promised Tekka, earning a loud laugh from Naruto. You speak as if I'm dead already, mocked Naruto, his usual sarcastic grin present on his face. Tekka could only grimly nod in understanding. Now go. Make sure the fox escapes with you. With a fleeting nod, Tekka and his companions took off to the trees with great speed. The Senjus cursed and made to follow, but Naruto got in the way and slammed his hand on the forest ground. A monstrous shockwave was unleashed across the forests. Majority of the ninjas sent chakra to their feet in order to retain their footing, but a few weaker ones were sent sailing away. Dust and uprooted grass disrupted everyone's vision, and when the brief storm settled, they saw the kinslayer raising his ancestral blade while also picking up another sword from a fallen Uchiha. Tobirama acutely watched the kinslayer twist both swords in his hands with practiced ease, his dark Sharingan eyes challenging anyone to defeat him. But the killing intent he was unleashing was enough to make most of the Senju forces back away. He considered his options. While he considered himself a good fighter, the kinslayer was a dangerous foe. He could take him on, but at the same time he had the man cornered. Tobirama had the numbers on his side, while Naruto was all alone. Even the Senju was surprised with the kinslayer's decision to act as a sacrifice to allow his people time to escape. It is far more honorable of him. Could there be more to this man than his stained reputation? Tobirama had only heard tales of Naruto's combat prowess. Maybe it was safer if he saw some of it first before taking him on. It was the right move. He gestured his troops to move forward, and few dozen brave ones charged towards the kinslayer, who grinned. Naruto stood rooted in his spot, his sword still swirling in the air waiting to claim blood. As his enemies came dangerous close, Tobirama's eyes widened when he sensed it. Water-style, water bullets. Dozens of sharp water projectiles escaped from the kinslayer's mouth, and being so close to the man, the Senju warriors had no room left to dodge, and Tobirama grimaced when they were all hit in vital parts, making their bodies crumble motionlessly to the ground with a sickening crunch. Naruto walked over the corpses, making every effort to further infuriate his enemies, and was not surprised when the hot-headed ones took offense at the way he mocked their dead clansmen. Another dozen came charging at him with loud roars. It was so pitiful. Right before their very eyes, he disappeared in a flock of crows. Their worried eyes searched for him everywhere until he suddenly materialized in their midst, his swords hacking them all to death in twin fluent strikes. His eyes narrowed as he immediately got up and brought his swords upwards to deflect the hundreds of kunai and shuriken being launched at him from all sides. He grinned and began his defense by deflecting every projectile with his twin swords. Tobirama, despite his hatred for this man, could not help but be heavily impressed. All those people that talked about the kinslayer's fighting prowess didn't lie or exaggerate. With his own eyes, Tobirama watched the kinslayer deflect every kunai and shuriken thrown at him. Most of his accuracy was thanks to his Sharingan that allowed him to predict the trajectory of those weapons, but his light feet, his hand movements, his moves, which were almost like a fine-crafted dance, was a proof enough. Naruto Uchiha was the finest swordsman Tobirama had ever seen. His eyes slightly widened when one kunai came bouncing forward and lodged itself into a woman standing a few feet away from him. She choked as the blood leaked from her neck, and only now did Tobirama see dozens upon dozens of dead Senjus. All of them hit by either kunai or shuriken that they had threw at the kinslayer, and who had used his natural skill to send it back at them with thrice the force and speed. The soldiers were bloody mad now for having so many of their clansmen and allies cut down so easily. Despite Tobirama's warning shout, those fools charged towards the kinslayer from all sides. Naruto quickly roared before slamming his foot brutally across the barren land, making half the forest tremble. The approaching horde of soldiers also struggled to balance their footing and were as such left defenseless when the kinslayer twisted his twin swords in a 360-degree circular movement. Horror crept through Tobirama as he watched dozens of heads roll off cleanly from the dead men and women's shoulder. Those who had been lucky to be charging behind the first wave instantly backed away with fear evident in their eyes. Tobirama made a quick count of the fallen and the wounded. More than 100 were already dead, with another 2 to 3 dozen sporting grievous wounds. He cursed himself again as he watched their Inuzuka and Sarutobi allies come charging in from the left and right flanks. Their appearance here could only mean the Uchihas and Hatakis from those flanks had fled the moment they saw Naruto launching that bright red flare in the sky. And the kinslayer had unleashed such a massive killing intent that must have forced Tobirama's allies to come charging here, if only to save him and Itama. But still that left for plenty of Yamanaka to chase after the retreating enemy forces. However, with the new addition of forces, the kinslayer, despite his skill and prowess, was overwhelmed. Still, he didn't even look winded despite the fact that he had been fighting for more than 20 minutes now. That playful grin still on his face. "Is that all you've got?" asked Naruto mockingly, earning hateful glares from his enemies, but none of them stepped forward to challenge him either. "Surrender," kinslayer spoke Tobirama, for despite his urge to kill this man, he had a feeling the Senju could gain even more if they captured Naruto alive. Even if the boy's father had disowned him, Madara dearly loved him, and the thought of making that arrogant bastard worry was enough to make Tobirama smirk. "In your dreams, pretty boy," retorted Naruto, and smiled when Tobirama scowled at the remark. "Why fight for a clan who hates you? Didn't they leave you the moment the tides turned? Join us and Hashirama can see you greatly rewarded," suggested Tobirama, already willing to exploit his enemy's dark history against him. Now it was Naruto's turn to heavy glare at the Senju who had the audacity to assume he knew everything about him. "You think my life is some precious thing to me? As if I would trade my family for a few more years of what? Asked Naruto furiously, surprising the Senju, for he saw nothing but truth and loyalty in those burning Sharingan eyes. Naruto Uchiha was definitely a strange man. Funny. For I think you only serve your family when it's convenient. Where was this loyalty and honor when you used those same hands to butcher your own people? The truth is, Kinslayer, you're a man without honor, said Tobirama coldly. He stepped forward ahead of his clansman with his ancient sword unleashed and was quite satisfied when his harsh words made Naruto grimace. While the Kinslayer didn't retort back with his usual sarcastic remark or even angry words, the raw pain in his eyes was enough to make Tobirama see he had wounded the man. For men like Naruto Uchiha could survive 1,000 physical wounds, but the wounds to his character were the ones which hurt him most. Today, in front of my allies and the gods, I shall deliver justice upon your cursed soul, promised Tobirama, unleashing a massive killing intent, yet Naruto looked at him with a mocking smile. If those gods are real, then why is this world so full of injustice? Asked Naruto bitterly, as he could see he was about to be killed either by Tobirama or the hundreds that had surrounded him. His death would be worth it if he managed to kill Tobirama, but the pain it would bring Madara made him ask that question. Why was his family suffering more than the Senjus? What right did these tree huggers have to consider themselves physically and morally superior when they were just as worse as the Uchiha? Because of men like you. Spat took a Senju hatefully, earning cheers and the same remarks from hundreds more. Naruto looked at his ancestral sword and at his own hands. It was with them he had picked up a sword and killed all his clansmen that night. Despite his actions, he had failed that night. Just as he failed in saving his 3 brothers, just as he failed in giving something truly worthwhile to his clan. Guilt and sadness crept across his heart as he remembered his life as nothing more than failures. There are no men like me, only me, whispered Naruto, but his words were not heard by any of these people. Tobirama prepared himself as he watched all sadness and guilt vanish from the Kinslayer's eyes, replaced by grim determination. The look in those Sharingan eyes was the one of a man about to die. But not alone. I am Uchiha Naruto, son of Taijima, brother of Madara, and loyal fighter of my clan. An armor of lightning enclosed all over the Kinslayer's body as he raised his swords, one burning with the same lightning sparks and the other burning with pure chakra. I shall take no wife, have no family, hold no lands, inherit no titles. He felt the power surging through his body, the guilt and fear washed away with a renewed courage as he remembered the oath he made to his father the day he was disowned. An oath he had lived his life by even now. I shall live and die for my clan and our allies. He could see his enemies taking a few steps back as he raised a single hand seal and created 10 shadow clones of himself that all turned to face their enemies bravely. I am the sword of my people, the shield of my allies, the nightmare of my enemies. And I pledge my life to kill every last one of you. Tobirama's eyes widened when the clones charged towards the Senjus and their allies, creating a bloody carnage as the battle began. He himself had to brace as the real Naruto appeared before him, delivering a bone-crushing punch to his face. As Tobirama was sent sailing away, Naruto willed a mass of crows to descend over the Senjus. As the blackbirds disrupted the enemies, he used the chance to charge forward, plunging his sword through their hearts, heads, and necks. Toka Senju roared furiously and uncaring of the crows harassing her, she charged forward, clashing her sword fiercely against the Kinslayer, only for it to shatter against the Uchiha's ancestral weapon, Dawn. Naruto barely noticed the shock in the woman's eyes before he brought down his twin swords, carving her up from shoulder to her navel. She gurgled and spat blood at his golden armor before crumbling to the ground. It was then he saw the unconscious form of Itama slumped against the trees. Every bone in his body was begging him to kill the boy, however the strategist within him knew his end was imminent. Even if the Uchihas lost this battle, if they had Itama as captive, then the Senjus could be forced to give up all they had gained. Taijima Uchiha might let his own son die if it gained him the alliance of 2 great clans, but Hashirama Senju would rather sacrifice those allies if it meant the life of his younger brother. Naruto could see Tobirama rushing towards him, but one of Naruto's own clones got in his way, allowing the Kinslayer to create one more shadow clone who quickly grabbed Itama by his shoulders. The enemy army froze when Naruto's clone placed a kunai at Itama's throat. Even Tobirama stopped with horror ever present in his eyes. Move a muscle and I'll cut his throat, warned Naruto, even if his mind was pulling him in 2 directions. The hatred burning within him was screaming at him to kill Itama and watch the pain it would wreak on Tobirama. It might even make the cold Senju go berserk, which Naruto could use to kill him, but the strategist within him knew how valuable a prisoner Itama was. The boy was also Naruto's lifeline in this battle, for no matter how strong he was, there were just too many enemies here. "What do you want?" asked Tobirama icily. "Take your army and go back to your lands. Get me a written order from Hashirama stating the Senjutsu parting with the Yamanaka and Hatake clans both. Then I shall release your brother back to your family," replied Naruto frankly. He watched as a sea of conflicting emotions passed through Tobirama's eyes as he glanced at his younger brother and then at his army that was watching his every move. "No deal." Naruto cringed when Tobirama raised a finger and instantly a mass of water erupted from beneath the ground, destroying the shadow clone holding Itama captive, while the injured Senju was quickly grabbed by his clansmen, this time being completely drawn away from the battlefield. "You used our conversation to gather time to make your move. Clever of you, Tobirama." With his trump card destroyed, Naruto raised his swords again and watched the last of his clones getting destroyed. Still, they had inflicted more casualties on their enemies, which was a bonus in his books. But now he knew his defeat was certain, even his death. Still, one good thing was still left before him. A chance to avenge his dear brother, for if he was to die today then he was taking Tobirama with him. Both fighters stepped closer as the enemy army now formed a circle around them. Sensing Tobirama's furious gaze and killing intent, none of his allies tried to intervene, which was a relief for Naruto. "Ready to die, Kinslayer?" asked Tobirama coldly, raising his own sword, which also now cackled with lightning, much to Naruto's surprise. He flung the ordinary sword in his hand aside, for it would be useless against Tobirama's own dangerous weapon. Now they would both spar, Naruto with his great ancestral weapon and Tobirama with his own holy blade. "Dance with me," then taunted Naruto with a smirk. Tobirama grimly nodded before they both charged forward, clashing their swords, sending wild sparks of lightning everywhere, with some even hitting careless Inuzuka who were stupid enough to stand too close. Tobirama winced at the injuries to his own allies and was further irritated when Naruto mocked him for it. Tobirama used all his strength to land every powerful swing of his sword across his enemy's body. However, the Kinslayer was very quick on his feet and even quicker with the movement of his sword, which he used to deflect every blow. Deciding to go on the offensive, Naruto forced a vertical slash towards Tobirama's head, which the Senju blocked with his own weapon, which left him wide open as Naruto suddenly jumped, delivering a brutal kick on Tobirama's armor that sent the Senju crashing away, while the Kinslayer flipped in the air while performing a set of hand seals quickly. Lightning style, electromagnetic murder. A maniacal laugh escaped from Naruto's lips as he watched the sheer horror that spread in Tobirama's eyes, watching his own allies being electrified before his very eyes. Naruto didn't relent and continued to shoot bolts of lightning from his hands that were powerful enough to even hurt Kurama. Against the lightly armored Senjutsu and their allies, the attack was a death blow, and a dozen more were sent crashing away. Their lives already ended before they even hit the ground. The carnage would have continued had Tobirama not made his move urgently. Water style, water dragon. Naruto was quite impressed when Tobirama used the water present in the air and turned it into a monstrous dragon with menacing yellow eyes. But by then he had also decided and acted on his counter move. Fire style, fire dragon. He so dearly wished his father and their clansmen could see him unleashing bright red flames from his mouth and shaping them into the image of a roaring fire dragon. They had all despised him for not being able to use fire jutsu naturally, but after years of training he was at least good enough to perform some decent moves. Although pale in comparison to the things Madara could do with fire, Naruto liked to think his elder brother would be happy with his progress. As both dragons of opposite nature clashed, a heavy mist spread across the area. Naruto again realized he had a chance to flee in this short confusion, but he also knew most of the enemy forces were here because of the threat he posed. If he ran away, then these same enemy forces would pursue his Uchiha allies, his Kinsguard comrades in Naori. And he couldn't allow any more of his people to die. Even if they hated or despised him, they were still his family, and that was all there was to it. So, he used that short chaos to wreak more carnage across the battlefield by silently creeping upon unaware enemies and slicing their throats. He used genjutsu to trick the alarmed fighters into harming their own allies, which only made him laugh. But his fun didn't last long as a wild gust of wind dispersed the mist and he found himself again surrounded by enemies, albeit fewer than they were before. Tobirama saw the 36 more soldiers that Naruto had killed in the confusion and grimaced. This victory was going to be very costly. But it also made one fact clear to him. Naruto Uchiha was stronger than him. He could continue to engage the man, but it would not stop Naruto from causing chaos and killing more of Tobirama's supporters, and enough had already died on this front not to forget those who could have died on the other two flanks. He had to put an end to all this senseless death. Setting his pride aside, he gave a subtle nod to his army. Naruto's eyes widened when he saw dozens of enemies performing a quick set of hand seals, and all of them were looking at him. Dozens of fireballs, water bullets, wind cutters, lightning bolts, and even giant rocks were hurled at his position. He allowed them to assume that he was done for before at the last second he made a quick hand seal. Kawarimi. Tobirama cursed out loud when he felt a violent force pulling him, so sure he was of his victory that the chakra going through his feet was not enough to resist against the monstrous pull. Before he could blink, he appeared right into the spot the Kinslayer once stood. He just had enough time to see the army of attacks that had been launched by his own clansmen before they hit him. Naruto collapsed brutally against the ground where Tobirama once stood as he heard the blood-curdling scream of the Senju with whom he had replaced himself at the last minute. By the time the dust settled, he found Tobirama smeared in burns and deep cuts across his entire body. The white-haired Senju spat blood and the same liquid leaked out of a dozen wounds from his body as he fell to his knees before crashing gracelessly across the forest ground, staining it crimson. The Senjus and their allies watched in horror as their finest warrior fell, the victim of trickery. Sensing the boiling hate and madness, Naruto quickly jumped towards Tobirama's slumped body and was relieved as well as furious to see the Senju was still alive, if only barely. He caught sight of the enemy army about to move forward in fury and quickly got up on his feet before planting his sword right ahead of Tobirama's head, marking a clear line. "You can kill me, but he dies with me. Then answer Hashirama how you got one of his brothers killed and the other hanging near death." "I'm sure it would be quite an interesting conversation," suggested Naruto with an arrogant smile. "He's already a dead man. You think us fools? We know you'll kill him even if we retreat," spat Sarutobi furiously. Every cell inside his body was telling him to kill Tobirama. His brother would have done it. But the rational part of his mind knew how important a hostage he could be not to forget even a valuable source of information on the Senjus and their plans. In that way, he was more important that Itama Senju for Tobirama was considered to be Hashirama's top officer. Whatever his thoughts on the Senjus and their allies, one thing Naruto admired was the fact that they respected and actually cared for their comrades. Something which the Uchihas lacked to some extent. Both clans were just as worse despite what either side claimed. However, the Senjus looked after their friends, and in return those friends looked after the Senjus. "We don't trust you. Everyone knows you hate Tobirama," spat a Senju bitterly. "Yes, I hate him for killing my brother. But ending this conflict ensures the safety of my people and that of Hashirama's most trusted brother. Now make your choice, I am prepared," declared Naruto, as he picked up his sword and placed it just above Tobirama's head. He saw the conflict in their eyes clearly. They didn't trust him not to kill Tobirama, which was quite justified for he didn't even trust himself not to do it. But if he was to turn this battle around and make sure his faction didn't lose all they had gained, then he had to sacrifice his personal vendetta. It was hard and quite bitter for him, but the lives of his people mattered more than his pride. Finally, one of the older Senjus with stark gray hair stepped forward and stared at him with a resigned look in his eyes. "I can see in your eyes that you seek death. You have nothing left to lose, but we do. We shall retreat for now and inform Hashirama of this," proposed the older Senju calmly. "Tell him if he wants his brother back alive then he has to relinquish any alliance with the Yamanaka or Hataki. Their lands and clans belong to the Uchiha now. Do this and he'll get his brother back alive," promised Naruto hesitantly, and clenched his fists shut to suppress his boiling rage at himself. It was the right thing to do, but gods it was hard. "What assurance do you give us in return?" asked the Senju patiently. Naruto glanced at his surroundings and realized he had nothing with himself that could serve as a reassurance to the Senjus. A proof of his word. Then he glanced at his ancestral sword, Dawn. His breath stopped as he knew what he had to do. The sword had been a part of him for all these years, had given him victories unmatched. The history of the Uchiha was inside this sword right from Indra to Naruto himself. A priceless heirloom. The only gift his father had ever given him. Closing his eyes, he tossed the sword towards the Senjus and heartbreakingly watched as one of them caught it. He knelt down and now placed a kunai at Tobirama's throat and saw the older Senju glance at the priceless weapon. "That sword is my life and the pride of my clan. As long as you have it, Tobirama will live," said Naruto icily. Even the Senjus and their allies gasped in surprise at the ancient weapon. Not only was it powerful and contained the history of the elemental nations, it was also worth more than 2 mountains of gold. One of the few valuable things the Uchiha still possessed from the old days. Naruto knew he would be further reviled for giving such a priceless heirloom as leverage. But he had no choice, and it was not as if people would hate him less after today. But if it secured a victory, then it was worth it. The older Senju glanced at him before giving a reluctant nod. That will suffice for now. Keep him alive, Kinslayer. Or you shall face Hashirama's wrath, and let me warn you, there is nothing more dangerous in this world than Hashirama's fury. It is that fury that compels us to accept this ceasefire. Warned the Senju. Understood, replied Naruto curtly. He stood guard even when the Senju army turned back and started their march back home. Only when they were out of sight did Naruto finally kneel down and check on his prisoner. Tobirama looked so close to death that it would be a mercy if Naruto crushed his throat. Not today. With a resigned sigh, he again glanced suspiciously at his surroundings and used his sensory powers, but he felt no presence other than his own and Tobirama's. He walked ahead and picked up the common sword he had thrown aside before and made a shadow clone who placed Tobirama on his shoulders. When that was done, his eyes turned towards his final destination, the Yamanaka settlement. He remembered the promise he had made to that clan, but they had not heeded his warning and betrayed his people. Faint raindrops fell from the skies, and soon enough it turned into a heavy downpour, as if the heavens themselves wept for the carnage that was about to happen. Itama Yamanaka bitterly watched as his precious town was now turned into a battlefield courtesy of the Uchiha and the Hatake forces. Despite the dire circumstances, the enemy army had came running back only to find Naori Uchiha protected by the Kinsguard. The Uchiha matriarch had been fast enough to escape the castle before the Yamanaka guards could kill her, but instead of fleeing she had chosen to fight. A fight that had been going on for quite some time with no sign of an end. Even though the Yamanaka had numbers on their side, the Kinsguard still managed to cut a bloody path through their forces. The only solace Itama had was the fact that Naruto Uchiha must have perished on the battlefield by now, and without him this resistance wouldn't last long. Another source of Itama's problems was the wild fox who was butchering dozens of his clansmen with laughing ease. Some of his people had been stupid enough to attack the beast, and it had retaliated with thrice the force. My lord! Itama was forced to turn his attention towards the eastern side of the town where one of his guards was pointing. And what he saw froze his heart. Naruto Uchiha stood there with a clone of his who brutally dropped an injured ninja on the ground. Itama's eyes widened on seeing it was Tobirama Senju himself. He remembered this boy's words from that night, and judging from the sheer fury in his eyes. Stop him now, shouted Itama in alarm. His personal guard moved to intercept the blood-stained boy who himself charged ahead. Itama cringed when within seconds Naruto made quick work of his enemies before marching towards Itama. The clan head performed a quick set of hand seals but had to duck when Naruto threw his sword straight at Itama's head. By the time Itama recovered, the Kinslayer had used a shunshin to appear right in front of him. Alarmed, Itama sent a kick towards Naruto's armored chest, and when the blow connected, something unexpected happened. Naruto didn't move an inch. He's channeling great chakra to keep his hold on the ground. Itama cried out in agony when the Kinslayer punished him for that mistake by connecting a solid blow to Itama's knees, the disgusting sound of bones cracking and Itama's scream drawing the attention of the fighting armies nearby. Naruto moved quickly by first breaking the Itama's remaining leg, followed by the man's arms, and finally connected a solid blow to his family jewels. By the time he was done, the Yamanaka clan head was gasping and moaning in pain. It's time I keep my promise, whispered Naruto reluctantly. The Yamanaka fighters tried to come to their clan head's rescue but were fiercely pushed back when Kurama got in the way. Naruto ignored the commotion and all the eyes that were on him and instead dragged Itama through the dirty streets by his collar before arriving towards a pole hanging in the town square. Without a word, he grabbed Itama and slammed the man against the wooden pole and quickly tied ninja wire around his body to keep him chained there. What are you doing? Gasped Itama Yamanaka in horror. Naruto stepped away from the man, and when he looked back at the blonde older man he just asked one question. What are my clan's words? Itama started to struggle against his restraints as a new kind of fear overcame his heart. His supporters were trying their best to get to him, but Kurama was not in the mood for leniency. Certainly not against fools who tried to rape his mind. There was no mercy or hesitation in Naruto's heart as he weaved through a set of hand seals and at the last second saw Itama cry out for mercy. But it was too late. Fire style, Dragon Flame Bomb. Itama Yamanaka's scream tore across his entire settlement as the fierce flames washed over him. His fine blonde hair caught fire and so did the rest of his body. The man screamed and screamed, his melting eyes pleading with the boy before him to end his suffering. Stone-faced Naruto watched the man burn alive before his very eyes. He didn't need to turn back in order to see the horror and fear that was spreading across the Yamanaka forces. He felt all their emotions and he knew after this people would only fear and hate him even more. But he had promised to burn them alive if they disobeyed his commands or betray the Uchiha, and they had done just that under the command of this man. He had to enforce his promise no matter how much it repulsed him, or their enemies would never take the Uchiha seriously. Burning a clan head like Itama of such an ancient and prestigious clan was going to send tremors across the elemental nations. Naruto's hands threatened to tremble as the burning man's screams got louder and more painful. But he didn't look away even as he watched the flesh burn and melt from Itama's entire body. He stared back at the man blankly. He didn't know how much time passed before Itama's screams turned into painful moans and into desperate sobs before his head finally slumped, making Naruto close his eyes in relief. He could have ended the man's suffering, but it wouldn't have enforced his message fully. The lone tear that fell from his eyes being the sole proof of his own sadness and revulsion before he masked his emotions and turned to face the Yamanaka fighters with his burning Sharingan eyes. Sounds of steel crashing to the ground echoed across the ground as one after another every Yamanaka fighter threw down their weapons, horror and fear ever present in their eyes as they watched the charred form of their clan head. They would never forget his screams nor the scale of retribution the Uchiha were capable of. Fire and blood. Thunder rumbled across the skies with heavy rains cleansing the blood-stained lands. The smoke and ash along with the souls of all the dead being taken to the afterlife. And Naruto watched them all, every life he ended today. All of them ascending out of this painful world to something better. They had all lived and died as true warriors regardless of their allegiances. For a moment he felt the faces of his 3 dead brothers staring at him. They were smiling at him, waving their hands as an invitation for him to join them. He wanted nothing more than to join them after today, to escape from this insufferable world where he faced and committed atrocities every day. A world where killing was as regular as drinking water. To end this battle, he had crippled a man's young brother, beaten the same man to a bloody pulp and took him hostage, and now burned another man alive. It had ended the battle with the surrender before him, the very proof of that. His clan was victorious despite all the odds and betrayal they had faced, and yet he felt more defeated than ever. His people and the Hatakis survived, but what he did would haunt him for the rest of his life. When he looked in Kurama's eyes, the fox had neither sympathy or pity in his eyes, something for which Naruto was thankful for. However, neither did the beast have any anger or repulsion in his eyes for Naruto's actions. The same could not be said for the Yamanaka or even Naruto's own clansmen and allies alike. He started his march back towards the forests in order to be away from all these people, this town, from everything. People parted away from him as if he was the plague itself, including his kinsguard and his aunt, but he didn't blame them. The fox wordlessly joined beside him, making Naruto glance at him sadly. There are no victors here. Chapter 11. The Soul. 2 days later. Hashirama Senju pensively sat in his chambers, his vacant eyes blankly staring at an empty piece of paper through which he could sign a deal that would prevent his side from gaining the support of 2 of the most noble and prestigious clans. In front of him, his only sister paced restlessly. Her face a mask of righteous fury. He had never imagined Tsunade to develop into the warrior she was today. She was the epitome of power and grace mixed together. In his opinion, she was probably the most powerful kunoichi and second best medic in the Land of Fire. He often wondered where that little girl he had carried on his shoulders disappeared to be replaced by a 15-year-old young woman who stood 5 feet 9 inches tall before him. Her blonde hair had grown longer, now almost reaching her back, and which she kept tied in a fine ponytail. Her skin was fairer than all of her brothers except for Tobirama, and she had all the womanly curves, including her generous chest. Many men had fallen to her charms only to have their necks slit when she turned on them. Most of all, her temper was more dangerous than any of her siblings, and right now she looked ready to draw blood. He glanced at the older Senju man in the room, one who had brought him the message from the Uchihas. Kota Senju was an old man who had seen enough warfare to last 3 generations. He had served Hashirama's grandfather as a young boy, Hashirama's father as an experienced fighter, and Hashirama himself as a war veteran, and right now the same man was glancing at the map of the Land of Fire territory, and Hashirama was worried to see that the Uchiha who controlled the north were now rapidly expanding their territory and influence. Their army was larger than that of Hashirama because of all the smaller clans they had gathered. And now they threatened to take the Yamanaka and Hatake as well, which would be a dangerous blow to Hashirama's side. Most of all, they had captured Tobirama, and it worried Hashirama every second. "What do they say of Naruto Uchiha in the north?" asked Hashirama curiously, making his sister glance at Kota as well. The older man looked at them for a moment before glancing at the Uchiha's ancestral weapon resting on Hashirama's desk. The Senju siblings didn't miss the older man shivering for a second as he recalled some bad memory. They call him the young dragon. They say he rides into battle on the back of a giant fox, some say he can turn into a fox himself. And he's the greatest swordsman I have ever seen, confessed Kota without hesitation, earning a derisive snort from Tsunade. The Kinslayer is just one man, dismissed Tsunade, and was surprised when Kota shook his head. "A man who has won every battle he's fought," my princess warned Kota. Hashirama was still surprised when his people and allies alike called Tsunade a princess. Granted, the Senjus were one of the two most ancient and most powerful families, but they were not royalty like the Fire Daimyo. And yet they called her princess, giving her that much respect and love. But then again, his sister had always been the favorite of their people because of being the only daughter of their father. "What happened there, Kota?" asked Hashirama patiently, wanting to hear the complete account of their defeat. "We went in according to the plan Tobirama suggested, attacking the Uchiha on all fronts." Apart from Naruto himself, his kinsguard had taken up command of the flanks, and they wreaked havoc on our forces. That group is no less dangerous than their leader and would have killed many more of our own if they had not been ordered to fall back by Naruto himself. As for the boy, he fought valiantly, and when surrounded by our forces he chose to stay behind, allowing his surviving comrades a chance to flee. We tried to overwhelm him, but he was very powerful, but more than that, he's smart. He killed hundreds of our ninjas before taking Tobirama hostage at the last moment. We couldn't continue the attack without the risk of him killing Tobirama, explained Kota briefly. "You should have saved my brother, Kota." "The Kinslayer was alone and there were hundreds of you," snapped Tsunade, for she remembered how badly injured Itama had been when he was brought back, all thanks to the Kinslayer. And now another of her brothers was captured by that same man, and only gods knew what the butcher was doing to her poor brother. "My princess, you cannot intimidate a man who seeks death. I saw it in his eyes, the desire to die, and he would have gladly done it if we attacked. And I assure you, he would have chopped off Tobirama's head before we killed him. That was not a price I was willing to pay," clarified Kota honestly, and prepared himself for a long argument when Tsunade looked about to protest again until one voice stopped them both. "Enough!" Hashirama's calm but commanding voice made both Senjus stop bickering and glance at their clan leader. Yet Tsunade was not finished, and she approached her eldest brother and knelt by his side, even taking his hands in her own, and looked at him pleadingly. "Give me the men, brother. I'll save Tobirama," promised Tsunade, unable to hide the worry and fear in her heart for the life of her captured brother. No matter her anger, she loved her family probably even more than Hashirama. But then again, Tsunade didn't have the burden of command on her shoulders. So, he patted her cheek like the young sister she was and gave her a kind smile. "I cannot lose any more of my siblings. Nor do I want to lose more men," admitted Hashirama gently. "Then come with us." "No matter how strong the Kinslayer is, he is no match for you," encouraged Tsunade, and was frustrated when Hashirama shook his head. "It will only lead to more bloodshed, and Naruto Uchiha is a fine commander who will make us bleed heavily for that victory, and enough of our men have already died. I just got word the Yamanaka have officially surrendered and allied with the Uchiha. The boy burned their clan head alive, and his supporters put the rest of the Yamanaka leadership to the sword. There is no way either Yamanaka or Hatake will join us now. And I will not kill Madara's last and youngest brother," declared Hashirama. Tsunade clenched her hands away from his and looked at him with fury and disappointment evident in her hazel eyes. More than that, Hashirama also spotted revulsion in her eyes at the actions of Naruto Uchiha. "He's not your friend anymore, brother. Whatever bond you two shared all those years ago, he forsakes it," yelled Tsunade angrily, but felt guilty when she saw the raw pain in his eyes on that remark. It still was beyond her belief that her eldest brother and Madara had actually been good friends a few years ago. Neither of them had known each other's true identity, and from the happy smile that always arrived on his face on remembering those days, Tsunade knew Hashirama treasured them dearly. But it all had fallen apart when they both learned each other's true identity. Madara had been repulsed by the truth, and the bond he shared with the Senju was shattered. Madara had walked away, but Hashirama was still waiting at the crossroads for his friend to return back to him. "If I kill Madara's last brother, none of us shall survive the storm he would bring into our lives." That boy is the last line of defense holding back Madara's sanity. "If he dies, then there shall never be peace between our families," explained Hashirama seriously. "My lord, the Uchiha have never desired peace with us. They shall not stop until they have destroyed us and our allies completely," advised Kota, and frowned when Hashirama glanced at him and Tsunade with a smile on his face. "Peace is possible, Kota. If we are so passionate about fighting, then I am equally passionate about peace. My father never wanted it, nor his father before him, but I do. And I, Hashirama Senju, am the head of this clan." Tsunade shivered and stepped back on seeing the determined gaze of her brother hiding behind that smile of his. Her eldest brother was kind of heart and a friendly person, but everyone including his siblings knew there was no stopping him if he decided on something fully. "I shall rescue my brother and resolve this conflict without further bloodshed," informed Hashirama. "How?" asked Tsunade with a frown. In response, her brother got up from his chair and grabbed Dawn, the Uchiha ancestral sword, from his desk. When he started marching towards the exit, both Tsunade and Kota were forced to follow after him. "Prepare our escort. We march for the capital." Naruto felt the winds rush past him as he galloped across the dense forests of the Land of Fire on the back of his giant fox friend. They had been riding for 2 days now, with only a minimal amount of rest in their journey. Not many words were spoken, and neither there was need for them. Kurama had been quite surprised when Naruto asked to visit the Amaterasu temple built by Indra Uchiha himself in the honor of the ancient goddess. While most noble clans and people alike followed the new gods, the Uchihas were the only family who kept faith with the old gods. But never had the fox taken Naruto to be a devout man. The boy had more reason than most to detest the gods and their existence for the several injustices he had to face in life. But when the battle against the Senjus ended and when Itama Yamanaka burned to his death, Kurama had seen something had broken inside of Naruto, and he could only hope the temple now arriving in front of them could provide his friend the help he needed. Not many would understand what Naruto did in the battle had saved lives of both enemies and allies alike. But those actions weighed heavily on his consciousness. Kurama carried his only human friend upwards the hundreds of high steps and deposited him at the gates of the temple. One of the unique things the fox observed was the lack of presence of any men here. The outer compound was full of several priestesses and their servant girls. Even the guards were female warriors, and if he recalled correctly, these were a warrior group of women who actually fought and won against men, taking their defeated prisoners and proposing them to either die by the sword or give their seed to the woman. If the union produced a boy, then he would be given to the father, and if it was a girl, then she would be raised by the mother to either become a priestess or warrior who defended this ancient temple. Located between the Senju and Uchiha borders, this place of worship had not been harmed by either side because the Uchihas were followers of the old gods and the Senjus respected religion enough not to do violence against its practitioners. Only true warriors were allowed to visit this temple, and Naruto was one of them. The boy got off Kurama's back and looked at his friend with the unasked question in his eyes. "Go on." "I don't worship these gods of yours when I am practically one myself," boasted the beast with a smug grin. Naruto's lips curved into his usual sarcastic smirk, and Kurama was relieved to see that side of him after so much time. The boy had been so quiet after what he had to do for their victory. He again surprised the fox by kneeling down and embracing Kurama in a firm hug. "No man has ever had or will ever have a friend like you, Kurama. Thank you for being there," whispered Naruto. Kurama fought back his own tears at those kind and heartwarming words. No one had ever said something so nice to him after the Rikudo Sennin. Everyone who ever saw him only called him a monster. After what happened to his siblings, he had drifted aimlessly in this world, and only his duty to keep watch over the Uchiha had prevented him from becoming a mad dog. But Naruto was different. When men would have been afraid of Kurama and his power, this boy was not at all intimidated. He befriended Kurama, looked after him, protected and shielded him even if Kurama was capable of protecting himself. Never had Naruto asked him to fight his battles, yet Kurama had fought for this boy. Because despite not wanting to, he had come to love this boy just the way he had loved Indra once before he went astray. Naruto was so much like the boy Kurama had once loved and devoted himself to, but at the same time he was different. Something more. When they parted, Naruto gave him a small grateful smile before getting back on his feet and walking towards the temple. Kurama still watched him and was proud to see that despite so many beautiful priestesses around him, the boy only nodded back at them respectfully. Despite what the boy claimed, Kurama knew Naruto tried to adhere to his own sense of morals and honor. It set him apart from his Uchiha family, yet Kurama had always felt an aura of melancholy around the boy. He was born in tragedy because of the death of his mother who died trying to give him life, the same way Indra's mother died giving birth to Ashura. Kurama remembered Indra being the same as this boy in some matters. The only thing separating them was the fact that Naruto was jovial and sarcastic. But the aura of tragedy and sadness was ever present in his life just as Indra had in his own. The Uchiha founder had dearly loved his family once just like Naruto did with his own. Indra had been just as protective of his brother and family like Naruto even if those same people detested him for his skill and personality. But in the end, in Indra's eyes, that same family betrayed him. The man's own father robbed him of his rightful position as successor. It was another matter that Indra didn't have the personality to make men love and follow him. Ashura himself usurped what was lawfully Indra's, and that started a war that had never ended till this day. Being the few who knew the boy's truth, Kurama couldn't help but see the similarities. Naruto had always been hated and looked down upon by his father. Taijima even robbed his own son of his rights just as the Rikudo Sennin did with Indra. The Uchiha themselves hated Naruto just as many of the Rikudo Sennin's followers detested Indra for his strict style of ruling. The only thing stopping Naruto from being the Indra of this cycle was Madara and Naori's love. It kept the boy sane despite all he had done and endured, but Kurama was now seeing cracks that had started to develop in Naruto's impregnable armor. He could only hope the boy didn't follow in the footsteps of his ancestors, because if that happened, Kurama was duty-bound to kill him, and it would break the beast's heart forever and shatter his last shred of hope in humanity itself. Naruto knelt before the altar with his attentive eyes staring at the large statue of a woman dressed in fine silk and wearing a shining crown on her head which was bright enough to match the rays of the sun. No wonder she was called the goddess of the sun. In her hands, she held a collection of flowers and in another she held a great sword. Even if the statue was made of stone, he actually felt as if he was standing before the goddess himself. And it made him feel small and insignificant. He could still see Atama Yamanaka burning alive whenever he closed his eyes, could still hear the man screaming in his dreams. Granted, he had burned many enemies with his fire attacks in battles, but to voluntarily burn a man alive with a single purpose of cowering his supporters was not something he had ever done. "What brings you here before the goddess, stranger?" He turned towards the soft and kind voice, and despite his control over his emotions, he couldn't help but marvel the beauty before him. The only thing that stopped him from blushing was her priestess robes and her sole-armed female bodyguard who glared at him. Still, Naruto turned back towards the woman and noticed she had waist-length black hair tied in a ponytail and sharp green eyes. She was beautiful with feminine grace and it made his heart skip a few beats. But then he remembered his oath towards his father and averted his eyes from her mesmerizing face. He vaguely heard her dismissing her bodyguard before she knelt beside him and prayed to the goddess. A comfortable silence stretched between them as Naruto thought about his next course of action. This temple was famous among warriors broken from war. It was known for its kind and caring priestesses who helped lost men and women find their way in life. It was a selfless order kept safe by the fierce female clan of warriors called Nadeshia. The only thing they asked in return was whatever the visitors felt comfortable in giving. Some gave charity in form of food, water, and clothing. Some gave weapons. Few women even joined the Order of Holiness after enduring war their entire lives. And a handful men also gave the Nadeshia clan children to continue their clan. He wondered what would be asked of him to give. She must have recognized his look as she gave him a kind smile. She was older than him by a few years. "You are safe here," she promised, and despite his ninja nature he felt he could trust her. "My name is Naruto Uchiha," he said hesitantly, unsure if on learning his identity if she would hate him for he had done many wrongs in life. And in the eyes of the gods he was a sinner, the worst one bearing the name Kinslayer. "And I am Shizuka Nadeshia," she replied with that same gentle smile. If she recognized him, she did very well in hiding her hatred if she had any. He gave her a respectful bow which earned a melodious laughter from her which brought a smile to his own face despite his troubled heart. You are a noble, aren't you? She asked curiously. How would you know? He questioned back with the same curiosity. I have been observing you from the moment you arrived. Most men who come here are often distracted by the beauty of the priestesses and warrior women alike. It is why they often end up fighting our guards and be beaten. The good ones are allowed to provide us our next generation. But you were different. Never once did you look at any woman the wrong way. Even now you show me the proper respect, and your only purpose here is the one with the goddess, she answered. Naruto was stunned. To think she could learn so much about him in just a short span of time, this was no ordinary woman. You have a broken heart, she said with a sad smile. He had heard rumors about the ability of a few priestesses who claimed to have glimpses of the future and know the true soul of every human being on meeting them. Never had he believed in those rumors, but Shizuka's gaze was so intense that he felt she could unveil his darkest mysteries in moments. Yet she continued despite his alarmed expression. You were born in tragedy amidst tears, blood and fire. I see great joy and great loss to have occurred the moment you took your first breath. And I see a smile on your face the day you breathed your last, she whispered. Naruto, despite not wanting to believe her words, couldn't help but find quite a lot of truth in what she said to him. He had been born in tears, blood and fire. Tears of joy and sorrow from his mother and family respectively, blood from the life Hikari Uchiha sacrificed to give him his own, and fire for the family he was born in. The Uchiha, descendants of dragons. People often said even in her dying moments, his mother had been overjoyed on seeing her last and youngest child. The son she had worked hard and bore so much pain to give life. Yet it was also the day his father truly smiled for the last time. Even his brothers had been saddened on watching their mother die, and the last part had been his secret wish. To die a happy and content man who did all he could for his family and his brother. Never had he shared his wish with anyone, not even Kurama. And yet this woman. He looked around the temple and only now he felt an aura he had never felt before. His great ancestor, Indra, had built this place, and in some way Naruto felt more connected to him here than anywhere else. I have sinned, priestess admitted Naruto, earning a nod from her. There is not one man who could claim he hasn't, she pointed gracefully, which did make him feel a bit better, if only for a moment, before his dark memories came back to haunt him. How can I forgive myself for the things I have done? How would the gods, if they exist, forgive me for my crimes? He asked hesitantly. He knew what kind of person he was, and in the eyes of the Almighty he was perhaps the worst of humanity. Shizuka stayed silent for several long moments while staring at Amaterasu's statue standing tall before them both. God forgives all his children eventually. He made us in his image, and despite all our crimes, we all have some good in us that we inherited from God. Even if you believe yourself a sinner, there must be some good things you have done in your life, she suggested patiently. A few, he said reluctantly, making her smirk. Then forgive yourself while trying to do the best you can for yourself and those whom you care about. Live the life the way you want and not how others want you to. And let the gods be the judge when you meet them in heaven, she advised, and was not surprised when he snorted. After the things I have done, I don't think heaven would be the ideal place for me, he joked with his usual sarcastic grin. But her firm stare unnerved him a little and made his grin falter. Maybe it was him, but were her eyes shining brighter than before? What do you truly desire in life, Naruto Uchiha? She asked seriously. He pondered her question in his mind, and the usual answer about duty to his clan and family were ever present. But there were other wishes as well, those he had buried a long time ago. In the end he decided to let go of some of his burden in this holy place, no matter how foolish it sounded. I want to be loved. He averted his gaze from her piercing stare, for he knew she would laugh at his childish desire. He was no longer the young boy from his past who needed affection. He was a man now, and his father had always said men were like rocks. Unbowed, unbent, unbroken. Men were the pillar of the society. They were the leaders to whom humanity looked up to for guidance and stability. Still, she never laughed at him or gave a funny remark which made him look back at her with surprise evident in his eyes. I see 3 instances in your life, Naruto Uchiha. Events when your soul will be tested, and what decisions you make then will affect your life and this world as well. And at the same time, I see great darkness in you waiting to consume you. Day by day your faith in this world is falling apart, and at this rate even your love for your family will not stop you from becoming the destroyer of this world, revealed Shizuka in a grave voice. Shivers passed across his entire body on her words. And yet she didn't look to be finished. Or you can be the savior of this world, but only if you become the man you are truly meant to be. Whatever choice you make, know this, that the world shall remember you for a very long time. He clenched his fists on hearing her words, which only added further to his problems. But he would not allow himself to fall into believing prophecies, for a man shaped his own destiny, not the gods. Shizuka must have realized his thoughts as she placed a comforting hand on his shoulder. When you already know that you are the architect of your own life, why bind yourself in chains? He stared at her in shock, for all his problems and worries had been resolved in those simple words. All this time he had imagined the world to be against him when he himself had been the one to do it. He never wanted titles, wealth, or even leadership. All he wanted was, "Be happy, little brother." He closed his eyes, holding back the tears as his dead brother's last words came back to him. Even with his dying breath, Izuna had wished for him to be happy, knowing that was all Naruto had ever wanted. Shizuka now stepped before him and offered him her hand, which he took and raised himself back on his feet. There was a knowing smile on her face, and he couldn't help but return it with a relieved one of his own. "Now what do you want?" she asked curiously. "I want to have a family, for my people to respect and love me again, to bring an end to this bloody war, and have justice for my brothers, and protect the ones I love. That is all I ever wanted," he confessed, earning a nod from her. "Then you will have it all, but only if you work for it with all your heart. I see something truly unique in you. Don't let others dictate your life. Seize control and become the son of your own life, just as Goddess Amaterasu is the son of all our lives," advised Shizuka. He surprised her when he respectfully knelt before her and bowed his head. "Thank you." She smiled and made him rise back on his feet. "I did my duty as the goddess would have wanted me to," replied Shizuka politely, and saw he was not satisfied with her answer this time. "Still, I must insist to provide something in return for the peace you have given me," said Naruto honestly. Shizuka looked at him for several long moments, and why did he feel she was checking him out in a way not appropriate for a priestess? But then again, there was no written law that forbade these women of God from living their mortal lives to the fullest extent. These Nadeshia people were quite strange indeed. He was surprised when she came forward and laid a hand on his cheek, making him realize a small stubble had started to grow there already. There was something intense burning in her eyes that drew him closer to her, and suddenly he was exposed to her appeasing sweet smell that was similar to blue roses. "How about this?" She raised an eyebrow when he blushed heavily at her intended suggestion. "I haven't done it before," he stammered in embarrassment. "Truly? Someone handsome like you would have women swooning over him," remarked Shizuka without shame, further adding to his embarrassment. "Or do you swing the other way?" Naruto choked harshly and had to cough several times, earning another melodious laughter from her remark and further to his embarrassment. Something within him ignited at that moment, a fire in his heart that was worthy of his dragon blood. He was not willing to use Makoto, who was infatuated with him. She was a beautiful woman, but more than that, she was a good person, and he didn't doubt she would ever refuse him should he need her body to comfort or pleasure him. But he would not endanger her by doing so. But a casual fling with a willing and attractive partner didn't sound bad. And somehow betting a priestess ignited the wild side of his that he kept in check all these years. "Are you sure?" he asked her one last time. His response was a passionate kiss. Kurama had to wait until nightfall for his friend to return, and when he saw him, he knew something had changed. Naruto walked taller and prouder than before. The guilt still lingered in his eyes, but along with that, Kurama also saw fierce determination. A man burning with passion, whose every stride made the ground beneath him tremble a little, made every passerby glance at him awe and fear both. He saw him going into this temple as a broken boy, but now he saw a grown man returning. The beast's eyes somehow drifted towards the temple top, where he saw a woman staring at Naruto's retreating form. Kurama blinked. Could it be? It was hard to tell when Naruto masked his emotions so perfectly, but he did smell a scent on his friend that was not his own. And it laid quite heavy on his body, which confirmed what Kurama had suspected. And he made sure to remind his friend of that. "You defied your father," stated Kurama, and was stunned when Naruto looked back at him without a flinch. Yes. Kurama had known this boy for years now, and nothing had made him hesitate more than to defy Taijima Uchiha and his orders. Yet the Naruto he stared at right now was not someone who was going to accept the things laid out before him. There was a fire in his eyes, the will to accomplish his dreams he had as a boy. Ones which were lost in the tragedies of his life. and he was going to burn anyone who got in his way. She could get pregnant, Naruto warned Kurama, for he was quite aware the retribution Taijima would wreak on his son for defying his order of never maintaining any kind of relationship with any women. The man was even more ruthless than his own sons, which was saying something. I know. Again, with the short and cryptic answers which made Kurama growl and Naruto to finally stare at him straight with his hard eyes. If it's a girl, she will either stay with her or come to me. If it's a boy, I shall raise him, and if neither happens, then I'll consider this my first step in regaining all I have lost, promised Naruto. But you were forbidden from ever having a family, said Kurama seriously. The murderous glare that came in Naruto's eyes made Kurama take a step back out of caution, for it reminded him of the same rage that had come in Indra's eyes when the man's own father did him injustice. I am taking back what is mine with force if I have to. If my father tries to resist, I shall destroy his precious legacy to shreds. Long have I allowed others to roll over me. I thought things would change and that my people would turn around. That this world will become a better place, but I was wrong. If I want things to change, then I have to conquer my own problems first, explained Naruto seriously. Kurama was left speechless and couldn't help but wonder as to what must have passed between Naruto and this priestess. His friend was a secretive and strange man, taking inspirations from things most men would neither notice or understand. Even if he didn't know what truly happened, he was glad to see the boy he had met first years ago. The one who had so many dreams and ambitions in life. All these years that boy had been buried beneath the burden of family and duty, but finally the boy had died and a man was born. You plan to conquer the entire world? Asked Kurama cheekily, earning a cocky grin from his friend. If I have to. I dare say it would be quite the adventure, wouldn't you say, old friend? Asked Naruto happily. The both embraced each other with laughs before Kurama allowed Naruto to get on top of his back. He watched the Uchiha's lingering gaze still resting on the beautiful woman who was waving back at him sadly. Naruto in return gave her his own sad smile and waved back before turning his beast friend around to begin their charge back towards the Yamanaka settlement. No one should ever know about this. Not father, Naori, or even Madara or any other person, instructed Naruto. You don't trust them? Asked Kurama in surprise, for all the gods knew the boy loved his family. It's not that. We are all duty-bound towards the clan and to father. Even if they don't want to reveal this secret, father could force them. And I don't trust the old man. He may never allow me to have a family, but this way, should Shizuka ever have a child of mine, then my line and family would continue. Once father dies, then I know my brother will gladly welcome his niece or nephew into the clan. The fact that their mother was a highly respected priestess should do well in silencing any protests, clarified Naruto. You sly little bastard. I forgot you could be quite the mastermind. You really have thought this all through, and I have to assume this Shizuka is happy to be the mother of your children should she have any. I mean, you barely know each other, said Kurama with a frown, making Naruto laugh. You don't understand their culture, Fox. They seek men who are strong and good. The fact that I am handsome and of noble blood only makes me more popular. Besides, it was quite the experience and I want to punch my father for preventing me all this time, said Naruto harshly, making Kurama laugh. Whatever you say, it's your decision. But there is some sense in this mad plan of yours, but a priestess? And that too inside the temple? Gods, you have no shame, man, mocked Kurama with a grin. He regretted those words when without warning Naruto activated his Sharingan and looked right into Kurama's eyes. You bastard! Naruto laughed boisterously on hearing Kurama roar in fury, and even his stomach hurt as the beast desperately tried to blink his eyes shut. As if doing so would rid him of the exact memory Naruto had placed in his mind, of Naruto and Shizuka going at it like dogs in heat for hours. Take that, you stupid fox, taunted Naruto with a smug grin. I will kill you for this disgusting nightmare you have placed in my mind, screamed Kurama, but it only made Naruto laugh more. Then who will remove this beautiful memory from your mind? Only I and Madara can do it, and I don't think you want to ask my brother for help. So, hush you stupid fox and run, commanded Naruto with a smirk. Kurama yelled hundreds of nasty obscenities for nearly an hour, but it only made Naruto laugh more and more until his side started to hurt. Yet he was happy and free of the burden that had weighed heavily on his mind ever since he burned Itama Yamanaka. There would always be darkness in this world, enemies always waiting to harm him. But if he was to find true happiness, then he had to conquer it. Izuna had wished it for him with his dying breath, and if not for himself, then Naruto was going to do it for his dear brother. He had to find his way back to power, respect, and his place in his family, no matter the cost or consequences. His encounter with Shizuka was one he was not going to ever forget, for it had truly opened his eyes in more ways than he could have imagined. But it also made him wonder about something. He had not loved Makoto or Shizuka, yet he was attracted to them for different reasons. He had maintained different kind of relationships with them, yet he didn't love them. Did that make him a heartless bastard? Or someone who was not capable of love? Either way, he doubted he could ever love any woman in his life permanently. The gods had to practically throw Shizuka at his face to make him realize many important things. Would they do the same the next time? But then again, he had not yet been bound to any woman, no matter how hard they tried. Naori had always called him a wild dragon, and his actions as well as personality befit his aunt's hypothesis. The only one possible of even getting a hold on him should be crazier or wilder than him. And those kind of morons were a rare breed in this unforgiving world. Maybe he could be a Casanova kind of bachelor? That thought was quite amusing to his young mind, for it filled his head with several enticing images. But for now, he was content in basking in pure joy as Kurama yelled at him to take those memories out of his head. Next day, when he entered the borders of Yamanaka territory, he was very pleased to see a joint force of Uchiha, Hatake, and Yamanaka keeping watch. What actually surprised him was the roar of approval and cheers from not just the Hatakes, but the Uchihas as well. Even Kurama seemed surprised by this change of heart. And as they continued to march straight towards the settlement, the roar only continued to grow louder and bolder. On everyone's lips there was just one chant: the young dragon. Naruto's throat felt dry as he remembered this same name given to him in honor of his first victory against the Senjus. Back then he had not felt anything for this title because he had lost 3 brothers for the victory. But now, for the first time in his life, he saw true respect and even admiration in the eyes of his people, and it was all for him. It was overwhelming. He had never received even a quarter of this love and cheers when he defeated the Fuma clan in single combat. But then again, they were not Senjus, and any victory against those tree huggers was enough to make any Uchiha a legend. And Naruto knew he had managed to achieve victory from the jaws of death. He had saved the lives of his clansmen, thrashed the Senjus, took Tobirama hostage, and had successfully managed to bring 2 great clans to their side. It was a great victory, probably his best till now. And he had every intention of achieving even greater ones should it give him even half of the love he was receiving right now. He had been afraid that his people and allies alike would hate him for burning Itama Yamanaka alive, but that single act had secured their victory. Could it be at that time they had just been too shocked of his action rather than be repulsed? It had to be the case, because if it wasn't, that not every Uchiha or Hatake would be coming forward to greet and praise him. The young dragon! The young dragon! The young dragon! Eiichi rode through the town that was shaking with the loud cheers and callings of his title over and over. Had he himself been the reason for his misery all these years? Was it so easy to change his own world? But now he knew where the problem had been. It had always been just one person, Naruto himself. He had borne the guilt of killing his clansmen and his failure in saving his brothers. It made him loathe himself. And how could he expect people to love him when he didn't even love himself? How could he expect the prideful Uchiha to respect him when he himself allowed them to mock him behind his back? Had he confronted them, even punished a few severely, then perhaps they would have feared him. But they would not dare to mock him or curse him. But it was all in the past now. Seize control of your life. He remembered Shizuka's words to him, and it was only now that his shoulders stood tall and proud. His smile was infectious as he truly basked in the much-awaited love from his people. The Uchihas were a prideful clan and one who had long memories. They would never forget a slight and answer it with thrice the retribution, but they were not one to forget loyalty and sacrifice either. And he had given them both for nearly 10 years while bearing all their scorn and hate. "You made it, boy," whispered Kurama, and while the beast didn't give a rat's ass about what the Uchiha thought of his friend, he was at least relieved to see them accept Naruto for the man he was. It took 10 fucking years of misery and pain, but the moment was here. They both arrived at the Yamanaka castle to be greeted by Naori and the entire Kinsguard along with a small force of Uchiha and Hatake officers. When Naruto dismounted and walked towards them, he made sure to keep his emotions in check. No need to appear smug when the look in his aunt's eyes was quite grave. But he was surprised when his clansmen knelt before him and the Hatakes gave a respectful bow. Naori gave him a fierce embrace but said nothing about his absence for 3 days. He had gone away knowing she and his friends could handle it, and they had done just that and more. He had a feeling his aunt and his friends might have a hand in making their clansmen truly accept what he had done for them, even going so far as almost sacrificing his life. Still, it was just a small contingent of his large clan and allies. There were still the elders, lesser noble families, and the common Uchiha civilians and soldiers both. He would have to win their hearts too, but this was a start. He was brought out of his inner musings when Naori wordlessly passed him a scroll, and his eyes widened when he recognized the seal. The Fire Daimyo. Quickly he opened the letter and saw the seal was already partially broken, meaning his aunt had already read the message, and as he went through the content of the letters his smile disappeared to be replaced by a cold mask of fury. "What will you do?" asked Naori hesitantly. Naruto saw Kurama looking at him for information and decided to explain what had happened. The Senjus have went to the capital with quite a large force. It is known to everyone the Daimyo favors them, but he also doesn't want to antagonize the Uchiha. The Daimyo has called our side for negotiations in hopes of reaching some form of truce, explained Naruto seriously. So they ask for talks while keeping an army nearby to slaughter us should we not agree to their terms? Doesn't Hashirama realize we will kill his brother before he tries to harm one of our own? Asked Kagami furiously. They have called me to represent our clan along with a small guard detail. I doubt Hashirama will attempt something, knowing any action against me means Tobirama dies, said Naruto hesitantly. It's a trap. The Daimyo's in on it, spat Takashi bitterly. You cannot ignore a royal summons from the court. Much less one from the Daimyo himself, warned Naori. Naruto somberly stared at the message directed to him and what implications it held for him. He would have assumed Hashirama wanted to negotiate with his father since Taijima was the clan head and the authority. But it seemed the Senju clan head wanted Naruto to represent his clan since it was he who defeated the Senju and currently held Tobirama captive, and not Taijima. Or was there some other purpose? He looked at his aunt, who was the politician in their family, and even she seemed wary and unable to determine the true motive behind their enemy's actions. His Grace summons you to the capital. Then you'll go to the capital. Naruto's eyes widened and his voice died in his throat as he looked at the person approaching towards him. Despite the situation, a wide smile came on his face, and breaking all sense of grace he ran towards the person. But not alone. Madara barely managed to make his promise before Naruto had engulfed him in a monstrous bear hug. Being the taller among the two, Madara lifted his sibling in the air, earning a loud chuckle from him. He finally managed to calm down his young brother and got a look at him. Gods, how many years had it been since he last saw the depressed little runt? He remembered bidding farewell to a young boy only to see a full-grown man before him. A man who had proven himself a true Uchiha and was the pride of Madara's eyes. Naruto also looked at his brother and saw Madara was a few inches taller than him, his frame broader and more muscular than Naruto. His baby fat had melted away, and despite being clean-shaven, Madara was an intimidating figure with his long shaggy black hair reaching up to his back and onyx black eyes that held the Sharingan in them. It was hard for Naruto to accept that this man was feared across the elemental nations almost at the same level as Hashirama. Probably even more, for while Hashirama was kind, Madara was ruthless. But then again, Madara had always been just his eldest brother to Naruto. Someone whom he could truly depend upon, a person who had defended him all their lives and stood for him more than anyone else. And here was his brother again, after all these years, ready to protect his sibling in his need of hour. This man was the reason Naruto had never wavered in his loyalty to the Uchiha, for he would rather die than cause Madara any harm. Even if it meant serving those who hated him, but now his brother was back and he could already feel things changing. Madara's next command to Naori was a proof of that. Call the army. Chapter 12. The Trial. Tobirama hazily stared in the darkness as he heard the lock click. His cell doors opened and he had to shield his eyes from the sudden invasion of the bright flame torch. It took him a few moments to adjust, but when he did, he saw the visitor staring at him impassively. Kinslayer. He spat, but it didn't evoke a single emotion from the Uchiha. Naruto didn't speak and instead called for a chair, which the guards provided quite quickly before bowing out of the cell. He then glanced at the Senju and was satisfied to see his wounds were healing thanks to Naori's aid. Tobirama would still not be fight-worthy for another few weeks, but he wouldn't fall dead either. Senju, how is your new accommodation treating you? I hope your stay here has been comfortable. greeted Naruto with his trademark smirk. Mocking me, are you? Asked Tobirama with a scowl. Accurate assessment, agreed Naruto with a smile. When their barbs died down, both Uchiha and Senju glared at each other intensely for several long minutes. The tension was almost breaking the air until Tobirama spoke. I underestimated you, admitted the white-haired Senju, and was surprised when Naruto nodded. You're not the first to do so, confessed Naruto. Why haven't you killed me? Asked Tobirama flatly. You know why. Tobirama could only think of one reason as to why he was alive and why the Yamanaka as well as the Hatake were still under the control of the Uchiha clan. Hashirama, said Tobirama bitterly, knowing what price his brother must have paid for his life. You're an ungrateful bastard, you know that? Asked Naruto sarcastically. You don't know anything about my family. My life is not worth the loss it would mean for our clan. It would make the deaths of all those warriors meaningless if the Senju lose control over the Hatake and Yamanaka, said Tobirama seriously. Your brother thinks otherwise, pointed Naruto, making Tobirama slam his hands against the strong walls. He's a fool. The glare he received from Naruto made him shut his mouth, and he couldn't help but wonder at the anger that arrived in the kinslayer's eyes. You're lucky, Senju. Your brother is still alive for you to call him a fool. Be grateful that you still have family that would give anything for your life. If the situations were reversed. Naruto stopped himself abruptly, but Tobirama didn't need him to finish what he wanted to say. It was clearly visible in the Uchiha's eyes. Your father would have let you die. At first he thought the Uchiha would either rebuff his claim or remain silent, but Naruto nodded, much to Tobirama's surprise. Then why fight for such a family? Such a clan? Asked Tobirama curiously. For my brother. Tobirama never saw a shred of doubt in Naruto's eyes. For the first time, the Senju could respect his enemy's loyalty, for Tobirama, despite his opposition to Hashirama's beliefs, would never hesitate to lay down his own life for his siblings. They both stared at each other, knowing they were bitter enemies who would have seen each other dead if it was any other situation. Why are you not interrogating me for information? Asked Tobirama seriously. It's risky and can shatter your mind, leaving you a living corpse. Your brother specifically asked for you to not be harmed in any manner, or else the deal was off. We have agreed to those terms, admitted Naruto reluctantly. Yet I see in your eyes the desire to kill me, remarked Tobirama, and clenched his fists when Naruto snarled at him. You killed my brother. Don't mistake the small mercy, Senju. I spared your sister's life in our very first battle. If I had known you bastards were going to kill Izuna, I would have slaughtered her. Only then you would feel the pain that I feel every day, yelled Naruto furiously. Tobirama glared at his enemy with twice the anger and hatred. I lost a brother that day as well. Your bastard clan killed my brother Kawurama, and he was more important than all your brothers. Consider yourself lucky, kinslayer, for if it was in my hands then none of your siblings or even you would have survived that day, spat Tobirama viciously. Speak like that and I'll slit your throat right here, warned Naruto, holding back his hands from grabbing a kunai from his pouch and finishing the deed. I'd like to see you try, challenged Tobirama with a smirk. He watched in satisfaction as Naruto fought with himself, his hatred trying to overpower his sense of reason. In the end, the Uchiha could only sigh bitterly before falling silent. Tobirama felt his own anger fade on seeing the heartbroken look in Naruto's eyes, and he didn't need to be a scientist to imagine what was on the Uchiha's mind. You loved Izuna the most in this world, even more than Madara, suggested Tobirama knowingly. Naruto's murderous glare was all the confirmation Tobirama needed to know. One day I will kill you, Senju promised Naruto, earning a smirk from the white-haired boy. Likewise, Uchiha. Seeing that he was getting nowhere, Naruto got up and was about to exit the cell when Tobirama's question stopped him. There is more to you than what you let people see. Turning back, Naruto saw Tobirama staring at him intently, which was the motivation Tobirama needed to continue further. I imagined you to be a mad bastard. But when I saw you, that image shattered. They all call you kinslayer, a heartless bastard who couldn't remain loyal even to his own people and killed dozens of his family. A monster, but I wonder what kind of monster would sacrifice himself to save a clan who hates his very guts, questioned Tobirama pointedly. I think this cell has made you lose the last of your sanity, chipped Naruto with a playful smirk, but Tobirama's knowing gaze didn't falter. Why did you do it? Naruto was left speechless by that question. Nobody had dared to question him on his darkest secret, most just assumed him to be a heartless monster while others were too scared to ask it. His family knew his reasons and his friends cared enough about him not to ask. But Tobirama, despite his hatred, had seen through the mirage of lies and rumors. He had seen through Naruto's soul itself. "Why did you do it?" asked the Senju again. Naruto clenched his fists as he remembered that fateful night, all those screams, all those who begged him for mercy, that madness and all that blood. Most of all he remembered those haunted eyes. Loyalty. Tobirama remained silent, pondering over that mysterious answer as the Uchiha walked out of his cell, leaving him in darkness. Naruto carefully sharpened his new temporary sword with the help of a sharp ironstone. It was tedious work tending to the blade's edge, but knowing that it could mean life and death on the battlefield made him do it without any complaint. Still, this sword was so heavy and cumbersome to move around. If not for his years of experience in sword fighting, he doubted he would have been as effective in the battle against Senjus with this blade. It made him yearn for Dawn even more. The weapon was like a best friend. No matter how many foes stood against him, if he had that sword with him, then he could still win no matter the odds. There was a strange pull that drew him to the blade. Every Uchiha, no matter how good or bad, had handled that sword with great respect. Naruto had always felt some strange connection with the weapon, as if it held some great secret in it and gave him strength in his most dire hour. Dawn was a bloodthirsty blood, having feasted on the blood of thousands over the eras that passed ever since the first war broke out between the Uchihas and Senjus. It was a long sword, but still light as a feather, and its steel was coated in chakra that was rumored to be stolen from the 10 Tails by Indra himself in secret. Naruto could believe all other aspects of the sword except the last one. He had held on to that belief for as long as he could remember, until the recent battle with the Senjus. He could still remember the moment Toka Senju's sword shattered before his own. The Senju woman was wielding a fine steel sword, probably passed down for generations in her family, and yet it had shattered like glass. Now that he remembered it, even the Fuma clan head, along with all his enemies who had wielded great ancestral swords, had almost destroyed their ancient weapons when they clashed them against Dawn. It made him hesitantly glance at the fox currently sleeping near him. Kurama! The fox opened one lazy eye on being called, but was forced to open the other one as well when he noticed Naruto's grave expression. Did the 10 Tails exist? The beast gave him such an intense stare that made Naruto want to flinch, but he defied that reaction and stared in his friend's eyes seriously. Yes. It was a holy tree which wielded the fruit of chakra. Every few centuries, it was forbidden to be possessed by any human. Until Kagaya Otsutsuki ate it. Naruto listened with rapt attention as Kurama regaled him the tale of the mystery woman whom most today believe to be a myth. The beast told him how Kagaya was not from their world, but some other universe, which further added to Naruto's shock. The fox told him of Kagaya's struggles, her eating the fruit, descending into madness, her desire to rule supreme over the world with an iron fist. She became the judge, jury, and executioner. She gave birth to 2 sons, Hagoromo and Hamura, who rebelled against her tyranny in the future. Both brothers had to defeat not only their mother, but also the holy tree that took the form of 10 Tails in order to gain back chakra from humanity. Kurama recalled the time with a haunted look in his eyes. The war for Dawn. Kurama told him horrible tales that followed in the war, of never-ending nights when the sun was concealed as darkness took hold of the world, of lands submerging into seas, mountains breaking apart like pieces, volcanoes erupting, and most of all the birth of unholy creatures which all looked human but were not. They were something else, and the leader of those creatures was the third tainted son of Kagaya, born from her madness and hate. In the end, the Otsutsuki brothers won and Kagaya along with the Jubi were defeated. However, Hamura sacrificed his life in sealing his mother away along with the shell of the Jubi in a place that was today known as Land of Water. It was a desecrated small continent where no life grew, no people lived, and was said to be haunted by the ghosts of all those who died in the war. It was where Kagaya and the Jubi had made their final stand, so devastating was the battle that even today those lands were not suitable for habitation. Hagoromo divided the spiritual power of the Jubi into 9 beasts, the most powerful of whom was Kurama. I always knew there were more of you. But you never told me as to what happened to your brothers and sisters. Implored Naruto, and saw great sadness flash in the beast's eyes. We all scattered across the world to maintain the peace that the sage wanted, but we failed as war spread everywhere. Men tried to use us for our power, forcing my kind to hide. For centuries we remained hidden until one by one all my brothers and sisters vanished. I never heard from them again, said Kurama sadly. Naruto bit his lip, wondering as to where his family and Dawn fit into the war. If this is true, then the Kagaya and Hagoromo clans are our great enemies. Is that why they came for you? Asked Naruto in horror, remembering the night when he and Kurama were attacked by those clans. Kurama didn't want to speak, but his friend's pleading eyes forced him to relent. Kagaya left behind a few of her illegitimate children who over the centuries grew into the clan you know as Kagaya. They waged war against the Uchihas and Senjus, even managing to influence the Hagoromo minor families to side with them. They both inherited the worst of Kagaya's madness, followed by the Uchiha. You all have her madness running in your veins, it is why the sage had asked me to watch over the Uchiha, revealed Kurama. Why? Asked Naruto worriedly. Because it was Indra who nearly reanimated the Jubi again in his mad thirst for power. It was he who was about to unleash the apocalypse, and trust me boy, if that creature is born again then the world of men shall fall, warned Kurama. Naruto tried to keep his shock in check. He knew his people were impulsive, prideful, and even arrogant. But they couldn't be mad enough to unleash that monster? Kurama almost gave him a pitiful look before abruptly walking away, leaving Naruto with even more unanswered questions. Indra was about to release the Jubi onto the world? It was impossible for him to believe, but never once had Kurama lied to him. But everything the fox said had bitter seeds of truth hidden in it. The Kagaya, Hagoromo, Uchiha and Senju were the direct descendants of Kagaya Otsutsuki. The first two were completely power-hungry and lusted for blood just like their female ancestor. While the Uchiha were prone to madness on losing things close to their heart, the Senjus were renowned for their legendary temper which they inherited from Kagaya. Taijima, Madara, and even Naruto himself had always felt there was a point where they would snap and do things no sane human would do. Kagaya and Hagoromo clans were mad enough that they had made enemies of almost the entire world. But were too strong enough together to be challenged by either Uchiha or Senju. Only together could the descendants of Indra and Ashura along with their allies could hope to take on those mad men. Most of all, nobody knew where those two mad clans lived, and it was one of the key reasons neither Uchiha or Senju had been able to destroy them completely. Even kind-hearted Hashirama was known to have a dangerous temper. The same trait was almost shared by most of his siblings and family. But comparatively the Senjus were much more sane than the other three great clans that descended from Kagaya. It made Naruto wonder as to what was the true history of his world. Kurama had perhaps kept watch over the Uchihas for a very, very long time. But it surely couldn't be just for the fact that Indra tried to revive the 10 Tails? No Uchiha knew even half the history which Kurama just told him, nor did they know any way to revive the 10 Tails. He froze. Memory after memory flashed before him, image of dawn, that dark night, that madness, that blood, that fire, those screams. For every day of his life after that incident, he had wondered the reason behind it. And now he knew why it all happened. It filled his heart with unspeakable horror, making him dash towards the Yamanaka castle. Madara had been grudgingly going through the Yamanaka clan's finances in order to decide what fine should the Uchiha collect as compensation for the blonde-headed bugger's treachery. Frankly, this was more his aunt and if possible, his brother's domain, and Madara despised paperwork to begin with. But Naori had simply bunked him on the head, her and his father the only two people having the audacity to do such a thing. His aunt had reminded him that his brother was thrown out of their family and out of the line of succession that left Madara as the sole heir of the Uchiha clan. It was imperative he learned how to rule and govern, and not just conquer and plunder. Naori was also trying to make him interact with the important nobles of the Hatake and Yamanaka clans, but so far Madara had been abysmal in those interactions, for those men and women were terrified of his power and barely spoke more than a few words. At times, he wondered whether he was the right person to lead their clan when his father died. He was quite strong and there were only a handful who could match his prowess. But apart from battles, Madara had little interest in politics or administration. In fact, he detested that web of lies and treachery, preferring to deal with brutal honesty. A fact for which he was repeatedly chastised by his father and aunt, even the elders of their clan. In his eyes, there was another more suitable for the job. Thinking of him only made Madara feel incompetent in his role as heir. Naruto was also powerful, cunning, politically skilled, and was good at managing things far better than Madara ever could. His brother had all the necessary qualities their people needed from their next clan head, but not only was his brother despised because of his past actions, Naruto was also cast out of the line of succession, leaving Madara helpless. But more importantly, his brother had never desired power or shown any interest in ruling, which added further to Madara's dismay. He was actually relieved when the door of their solar was slammed open and his brother marched in. However, Madara's smile faltered when he saw the absolute terrified expression in his brother's eyes. In a second he was up on his feet, startling Naori, and quickly approached his younger brother. "What is it, little brother?" asked Madara worriedly, and didn't miss his brother clenching his fist. "Where's the ancestral tablet?" demanded Naruto in near panic. Madara frowned. Didn't his brother remember? However, Naruto looked to be on the verge of a mental breakdown until Naori immediately came forward and grabbed him in a fierce motherly hug. At first the boy protested, but Madara saw his aunt was quite determined and didn't relent, which made Naruto finally breathe and sink in her embrace. His brother was still shivering, and Madara knew the boy enough that there was only one thing that could reduce his brother to such a panicked state. Still, he kept his silence, watching Naori whisper soothing words in Naruto's ears, allowing the boy to calm down. It took a few long minutes, but neither Madara or Naori lost their patience, which helped Naruto to calm down. When the boy seemed in control again, he gave Naori a wide grateful smile before kissing her cheeks affectionately, earning a smile from her. Madara felt jealousy course through his heart on seeing the unending love his brother had for their aunt. Granted, she had been like a mother to the boy, but it still made Madara feel a little insecure. It was supposed to be him and Naruto against the entire world, but it seemed that while their years of separation had not shattered their brotherly bond, it had also not been able to prevent another from taking an important place in Naruto's heart. Yet, Madara kept his silence. He had no particular need for affections from either his aunt or father. He loved and cared for them, but he could fight his own battles as long as he had Naruto by his side. He had to suppress his bloodlust on imagining the situation if the Senjus had killed his last brother. Gods knew how much restraint it had taken him and repeated pleadings from Naruto to stop Madara from ripping Tobirama apart limb from limb. That Senju had already killed Azuna, and now he tried to take Madara's last brother from him? Madara had never forgiven the Senjus for killing his brothers. He had once shared a friendship with Hashirama, which had also gotten destroyed when he learned his friend was in truth the head of the clan that slaughtered his brothers. He had to agree to negotiate because the Senjus had dawned, and even Madara knew the importance of that sword. Most of all, it was Naruto's pride, and for his brother Madara was willing to set his bloodlust aside. Temporarily. One day he would still have justice against the Senjus for the murder of his brothers and clansmen. But he would wait for the right moment, and then he would kill them all. Madara? He saw Naruto staring at him, and it did not surprise Madara anymore that his brother always read through his thoughts no matter how much Madara tried to hide them. Madara wished he could say the same regarding his brother. "You destroyed the Uchiha tablet that night with your own hands. Have you forgotten?" reminded Madara, with a frown, and didn't miss Naruto sighing in relief. Naori checked her nephew's forehead and asked, "Are you alright?" "Just a bad dream," whispered Naruto, which was enough to pacify Naori, but Madara saw through that lie easily, and if not for Naruto's pleading gaze he would have called his brother out on that lie. "Father will be arriving shortly," informed Madara, and saw the nastiest scowl arrive on his brother's face. "I see." Madara pretended to not notice the hostility and decided to bring his brother up to speed as to their next move. "He brings with him a force of 7,000 strong men from the Uchiha, Shimura, Aburame, Yui, Kurama, Namikaze, and other smaller families," revealed Madara. "That is not our full strength," suggested Naruto, earning a nod from his aunt. "There is no need to bring all 10,000 of our fighters." "Taijima knows what he's doing," she said confidently, and frowned when Naruto snorted insultingly. "The daimyo has 15,000 fighters, and the Senjus must have brought a few thousand of their own to the capital. If conflict starts, then we'll be outnumbered." "Has the old man lost his wits?" asked Naruto sarcastically. "Careful," brother warned Madara. While he had little love for his father, it didn't mean he would allow anyone to disrespect the man, even if it was his own brother. "Are you defending father? You? After what he did to me," said Naruto in disbelief, his accusing eyes staring at Madara with unending fury and disappointment, making Naori sigh. "We respect the position, if not the man," reminded Madara patiently, earning a snarl from his little brother. "I did everything that was asked of me, and he promised me that things would change between us. But even after all I have done, never once did he write to me or visit me even," said Naruto bitterly, almost taking an aggressive step towards Madara before Naori got in the way, placing a restraining hand on his chest. "He's a clan head, brother. He has many important duties," said Madara hesitantly, and winced when he himself realized how weak that excuse was. And it showed as Naruto stared at him with a clear betrayed look in his eyes. "You've changed, brother. Those words hurt Madara more than any blade ever had, and the heartbroken look in his brother's eyes made him want to bonk Taijima on the head multiple times for placing him in this ridiculous situation, forced to choose between a father and a brother. Madara is only trying to keep the peace in the family. Naruto, he has fought more for you than anyone else, said Naori soothingly, but Naruto's accusing stare didn't relent. In fact, it became downright cold. Have it your way then, brother. But I am taking back what's mine when father gets here, snarled Naruto furiously, making Madara sigh. Don't do anything stupid, brother. Your reputation is improving, don't ruin it, warned Madara, earning a snort from the younger Uchiha. A dragon does not care for the opinion of sheep. Naori saw Madara's eyebrows twitch, which was a blatant warning that the man was about to snap, so she forcefully pushed both boys further away, glaring at them both equally. Cool off your head, Naruto. You're clearly not having a good day, she ordered. No dash. Now. Madara smirked on seeing the little runt squirm under their aunt's gaze before clenching his fists tightly. Naruto glared at his aunt, receiving the same gesture from her, but in the end he loved, or at least respected her enough to follow through with the order. Madara, get back to your paperwork, reminded Naori sternly. It was Naruto's turn to smirk when he saw the groan that escaped from Madara's lips. Yet his triumph didn't last long, as he realized something had changed between him and his brother. There was a distance. It was small, but there. He knew Madara still loved him and would protect him, but his brother was slowly being groomed to be more dutiful towards his responsibilities as heir of their clan. Being forced to be more objective than emotional, even if it meant going against Naruto. He could see it in his brother's eyes that he didn't want it, but it was his duty. But Naruto was not deterred by that. He had to fight his own battles rather than rely on his brother every single time. He was a man now, and not the young boy who had needed protection from his brother all those years ago. So, he gave a cut nod to his brother, who returned the gesture with unmasked sadness in his eyes. Exchanging a glance with Naori, he walked out of the room. It was evening, and almost the entirety of the Uchiha, Hatake and Yamanaka population had assembled before the gates of the settlement. Naruto dutifully stood beside his aunt and brother, flanked by the members of the Kinsguard as they all patiently waited. The sound of thousands of footsteps made the ground tremble, and Naruto didn't miss the slight shivering of the Yamanaka, and he didn't blame them. For the first man to clear out of the dense forest was riding atop a dark black warhorse. Dressed in blazing Uchiha armor, Taijima Uchiha still made many cower before him. Naruto coldly stared at the man for whom he had once harbored affection, even love, which was transformed into pure loathing over the years. Despite his dark emotions, he still couldn't help but admire the man's power. Behind Taijima came thousands of the Uchiha bannermen, many holding the flags of their respective clans, but it was the dragon banner that was fluttering the most, carried proudly by thousands of Uchiha. He followed Madara and Naori's lead when they both knelt before their leader, his Kinsguard, and the remaining population following suit. While everyone had their heads bowed too, Naruto, while kneeling, never broke eye contact with the man. There was not a flicker of emotion visible in Taijima's cold eyes, which only glanced at him for a moment before nodding as he descended from his horse. Within seconds, the clan head was flanked by his supporters and the elders of the clan. Naruto didn't miss the sheer loathing in the eyes of the elders. They had all wanted his head on a spike after that night, and if not for Madara, they would have had it. One glance at their sneering faces zeroing down on him, and he knew. Taijima brushed past Naori and Madara, ignoring them both, only to step before his youngest son. There was no joy, or surprise, or even fury in those cold and lifeless eyes as they motioned him to rise from his feet. Naruto followed the command, making sure his own eyes were the same as his father's. You lost Dawn. There was a time when those words would have stung, but that time was long gone, for Naruto had expected nothing less from this cold man and his equally ambitious advisors. They would not see why he relinquished their clan's greatest relic. They would not see the victory he brought them, nor would they accept any excuses from him. I did, replied Naruto, his voice as cold as ice. It was Hotaru Uchiha, an elderly woman, who stepped forward next. Naruto had not forgotten the fact that he had killed her brother that night, earning the name Kinslayer. She had been out for his blood for a very long time, and now she had the chance. A vote was called among the clan. As the council represents the voice of the Uchiha people, we have deemed you guilty for deliberately handing over our family heirloom to our sworn enemy. A trial will be held to determine your guilt, and if proven, then appropriate punishment shall be awarded, declared Hotaru loudly, earning shocked gasps from his supporters. Naruto was not surprised, having expected something like this, but his father's silence still stung him. This woman was accusing his son in front of their clan and allies, and yet he was silent despite knowing why Naruto had to do what he did. But then again, the Uchiha people were represented by the council and unanimously they could call for a vote which the clan head would be forced to pass. It was the only flaw to the rule of Naruto's family, which Taijima was duty-bound to uphold. Still, he was pleased that his friends and all those Uchiha, Hatake, and even Yamanaka whose lives were saved because of his actions were none too pleased. In fact, they looked downright furious, but Taijima's cold gaze was enough to make them cower. Madara and Naori tried to get close to Taijima surely to oppose this farce, but the clan head simply shook his head making them stop. Naruto's once beating heart turned as cold as ice as he approached his father. Another elder, Itama, tried to stop him but was swiftly made to step back when Naruto activated his Sharingan, glaring down at the man. Father and son locked gazes with each other, with no emotion present in their eyes. I will never receive justice from this farce and I've had enough of this madness. I will not stand in this trial, declared Naruto, earning outraged shouts from the elders and their hundreds of supporters. For a moment, Taijima's eyes flickered with pride, but it could be Naruto's imagination as he saw the older man glance back at him coldly. The law is the law, announced Taijima. Naruto smirked before unleashing his sword, drawing shocked gasps from majority of the people. Ignoring the outraged cries, he pointed the weapon at his father. I challenge you to single combat. Stunned silence engulfed the entire crowd at his words, even Taijima blinked, looking for the first time a bit startled. He glared at his youngest son for his open defiance, warning him to back down, but Naruto didn't. Taijima was well aware of this law. It could be used by any Uchiha to challenge their leader should they feel they could be a better leader of their clan. But in the strong patriarchal Uchiha society, nobody challenged their betters. Surely, various noble families vied for leadership, but they worked from the shadows, knowing openly challenging the hierarchy would mean doom for their entire family should they lose. Naruto was the first to exercise this law, and that too against his own father, which had the entire clan and their allies alike stunned. Even Madara had paled and Naori looked ready to faint. His friends looked at him worriedly, but Naruto's gaze was solely fixed on his father. The elders who were previously confident now looked uncertain, for if Naruto won then he would be the new clan head, and they didn't need anyone to tell them what the boy would do to them after all they did to him. Taijima, for all his power and shrewdness, knew what his youngest son was capable of. There was a time when he could put down Naruto easily, but it had long since passed. He was a warrior proven, having many victories to his name, even claimed to be the finest swordsman in the elemental nations. But at the same time, if Taijima won, then he would be free to decide Naruto's fate, and the young Uchiha doubted it would be anything pleasant. Certainly not after this open defiance, but it was now or never. Then I name Madara as my champion, announced Taijima with the tiniest of satisfied smiles. The Uchiha clan head saw Naruto stagger for the first time as he glanced at his elder brother. There was no doubt Naruto was powerful, but Madara was a totally different beast. Most of all, Naruto would never raise his sword against his brother. And Taijima knew that. Father protested Madara, only to have Taijima glare at him coldly. That was a command, or will you betray me too just like your brother? Asked Taijima with the barest of hope visible in his eyes. Naruto's heart broke on seeing so much hope and pride that his father had in his eyes for Madara. It was enough to make him see that nothing he would do would ever be enough for this man. At the same time, Taijima had not only ordered but requested his eldest son to remain loyal. Glancing at the crowd, Naruto saw they were all looking at Madara anxiously. If his brother refused, then it would not only undermine their father but also make Madara unpopular. It could also endanger their family's rule over the clan, and Naruto knew the elders and lesser noble families would exploit this incident to create further divide. I accept. Madara watched in horror as those words escaped from his brother's lips. He wished it were his imagination, wished so badly for Naruto to set aside his acceptance, but his brother stared back at him with sadness but determination ever present in his eyes. Their painful silence allowed Taijima to step forward and glance at the crowd. May the gods let the true dragon win. Chapter 13. A dragon has claws. Makoto, as well as the rest of the Kinsguard, stared at their leader, who was seated in a corner sharpening his twin swords. There was not an ounce of emotion present on Naruto's face, and his gaze was solely fixed on the weapons he would be carrying into battle. A battle against his own brother. Everyone knew how much Naruto loved his brother, But to think those same brothers would be at each other's throats in a matter of minutes. Naruto, it's still not too late, advised Kagami. It's a deathmatch, warned Takashi worriedly. You're strong, but Madara is more powerful than you. Lord Commander, your brother will use more than swords against you, cautioned Itachi. At that, Naruto finally looked up and saw the fear ever present in their eyes. I am not killing my brother no matter what the law says, he promised. So you want to die instead? Asked Makoto furiously, making him smile. I never said that, he pointed. Are you not afraid? Asked Makoto worriedly, and was relieved when it made him pause. She watched him stare at his twin swords, and even if he was the finest swordsman she had ever seen, her heart feared for his life. He finally got up on his feet and walked towards them. Dressed in his golden armor with twin fine swords at his sides, he was a formidable opponent to glance at. But the one he was going up against was just as good, if not better. Stopping before his friends, he stared at them seriously. Every man is afraid before going into battle. I am no different, confessed Naruto. If it looks like you're in trouble, call for us. We will answer, promised Shursui, placing a hand on his friend's shoulder, making Naruto smile. They all were still amazed that in a matter of 2 hours all the preparations had been made. The Yamanakas had an old training ground in the forest that would serve as the battlefield for the upcoming combat. Almost every person was going to be there, a conflict which could possibly be remembered for 1,000 years. Just like Indra and Ashura's was till this day. Not only were the two fighters the strongest Uchiha of their generation but also the finest warriors of the world. They were also the only Sharingan wielders the Uchiha had ever produced in hundreds of years. Ever since the Sharingan was awakened and the two brothers continued their exploits over the years, it was always a point of contention as to who was stronger among them. Madara had many victories to his name, the most notable being defeating the entire Aburame clan in single combat on his own, while Naruto was proclaimed to be the finest swordsman of this generation of ninja warriors. He defeated the Fuma clan in single combat with his fox, and was also responsible for victories against the Senju and Yamanaka clans. If I fall, then you all shall pledge your loyalty to my brother. Promise me, he insisted. And if you win? Asked Itachi calmly, much to the relief of the others, because they could not have given Naruto that promise. Certainly not if Madara killed him today. Then seize the elders and all who try to stop you, he instructed, earning nods from his friends. He saw Makoto was resisting the urge to grab him and not let go, but he discreetly pointed her towards her brother's presence, which made her reluctantly back down. With one final parting, he departed from the room and saw Kurama waiting for him outside. You ready? Asked the fox nonchalantly. As ready as I can ever be for something like this, replied Naruto calmly. Kurama, despite the situation, gave him an amused grin. Then go out there and kick his ass, ordered the fox. So sure, I can win? Asked Naruto amusedly, a smile arriving at his lips. Yes. Naruto gave a respectful nod at the faith his friend was placing him in. Kurama had even offered to fight alongside him, but he had refused. Not only was it against the rules, but Naruto wanted to fight his brother himself. All his life he had followed in Madara's shadow, now was the time to step out of it and become the man Shizuka had suggested him to be. With that determination, he walked away ready to face the most important battle of his life. Stands. Taijima and Naori were seated in an elevated stand specifically built for the clan heads and important nobles. The rest of their clansmen and civilians had taken position across the field, while a few Yamanaka guards had erected a barrier dome that would prevent any attacks from hitting the audience and bar anyone from disrupting the match. Around Taijima sat all the clan heads of every allied clan, including the likes of Tsukumo Hatake, Shin Aburame, Siko Kurama, Rei Namikaze, and many more. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Madara's form standing inside the barrier. Taijima glanced at his eldest son dressed in bronze armor, carrying his traditional gunbai on his back and a sword on his hip. He looked fierce and dangerous. And then the other side of the barrier opened as a figure walked in. Naori didn't miss the various clan heads staring in surprise and even awe as they saw the young dragon in all his glory. Dressed in his familiar golden armor bearing the mark of a roaring dragon on his chest and the Uchiha symbol on his back. Twin swords rested on his hips and a dark black cloak fluttered behind him as he walked. His usual masked face was today open for everyone to see. She didn't miss Taijima staring at his youngest son quite intently as if he saw something he had never seen before. Naori couldn't blame him. While Madara looked dangerous and fierce, Naruto looked calm and there was something regal about him. Maybe it was his shining armor or his composed face, it made him glow. Most of all, it was the way he walked that made it clear that he was not afraid of facing his opponent. There was a loud cheer from the civilian and many Uchihas even, much to Taijima and the elders' surprise. Apparently, those people had not forgotten what Naruto had risked and sacrificed to save their lives. Even a few Yamanaka rooted for him, albeit in a reserved manner, while the Hatake were quite open in their support. Their clan and most ninjas might hate the boy, however Naori knew for a fact that across the civilian population of the Land of Fire her nephew was quite popular. It might be because of the fact that whenever he was free over the past decade, he would defend every civilian who asked for his aid against bandits, rogue ninjas, or thieves. Most of all, he never took a single charge for his services. Among those poor and impoverished families who had no say in the politics of great clans but suffered all the same, Naruto Uchiha was a breath of fresh air. For them, he was like the samurai from the old days who fought with honor and defended the weak. Despite all that had happened in his life, Naruto still tried to live his life by performing his duty not just to his clan but innocents alike with honor and dedication. My, he's quite handsome, commented Rei Namikaze cheerfully, the young clan heiress staring at Naruto with quite a lustful look in her eye. Maybe. But his brother can pummel him and his shining armor easily, said Siko Kurama skeptically. Naori smirked but kept her silence at that last statement. She didn't know the outcome of this fight, but she did know two things. The first being the fact that neither of these two boys were going to kill each other despite popular expectation. Second, they were all in for quite a surprise. Arena. Naruto stepped before his elder brother, who nodded at him respectfully. Even so, Madara's reluctance for the upcoming battle was clear to see. Naruto, on the other hand, was determined to prove himself. Brother greeted Madara. You ready? Asked Naruto calmly, making Madara sigh. It's still not too late, brother. Bend the knee and let the trial happen, we'll squash it easily just like before, promised Madara sincerely. For a moment he was so sure Naruto would do so, instead his brother smiled at him. My knees do not bend easily, Madara. Those words had said all Madara needed to learn. If that was not enough, the ironclad determination in Naruto's eyes was enough to make him see the boy was not going to back down. Very well, relented Madara, earning a smile from Naruto. I wish you good luck, Madara. It earned a sly grin from the elder Uchiha as his right hand gripped the hilt of his sword, while the left grasped the gunbai on his back. Before Madara could even unleash his weapons, in the blink of an eye Naruto's hands grasped the hilts of his swords, and a second later the shining weapons were unleashed for all to see. And so was Naruto's Sharingan as all playfulness disappeared from his eyes. Now it begins, proposed Naruto calmly. Madara closed his eyes, releasing a final sigh before he unleashed his own weapons, and when he opened his eyes again they stared back at his brother with a fully evolved Sharingan that displayed nothing but determination and confidence. Now it ends, little brother, promised Madara. The next second, two killing auras engulfed the entire forest. Stands. The clan heads flinched when the monstrosity that was the killing intent was unleashed by the brothers. It was so thick that it felt as if the air itself was made to bow before them. Dozens of civilians already fell unconscious, and so did the weaker ninjas. Even the stronger ones felt quite uncomfortable in the presence of that power. Naori did not miss Taijima brim with pride on seeing the effect his sons had, and the match had only just began. Their allies, who were previously considering the two as boys, now realized they were grown men instead. Madara's killing intent was like a raging tsunami threatening to consume everyone and everything that came in its way. Naori found it quite fitting. On the other hand, Naruto's killing intent was completely focused like a sword. Strong, precise, and deadly. What surprised her and everyone else was the fact that Naruto was being able to match his brother's power. Even Madara seemed surprised. Naori had always known Madara was a powerhouse, but if the account of the Kinsguard members were to be considered, Naruto had not yet unleashed his full power in any battles till now. She had a feeling that claim was about to be laid to rest. So, this is the young dragon, commented Shin Aburame quietly. It remains to be seen whether Pretty Boy can match up in skill and quick thinking, advised Shimura Tobi coldly. While the Shimura clan had always been the most loyal bannermen of the Uchiha, their ruthlessness was greater than those of the dragon descendants. Indeed, agreed the other clan heads, earning reluctant nod from the Uchiha elders. Naori could not help but smirk on seeing those fools losing some of that overconfidence now that they realized Naruto was no longer the weak boy anymore. Out of the corner of her eye, she saw movement that caught her attention. Naruto's most loyal and trusted friend discreetly stepped towards the stands. Shursue's face did not betray any emotions, but Naori did not miss the fact that he was fully armed and armored. So was the rest of the Kinsguard, and they all specifically took positions near the seats of the Uchiha elders. The elders actually looked quite relieved on seeing Shursue's presence. Just like them, Shursue belonged from an important Uchiha noble family, and while his father did not sit on the elders' council, he did wield quite a lot of influence. More than that, Shursue was the second most skilled swordsman in the Kinsguard, according to some even in the Land of Fire. The Morning Star. It was the name bestowed on Shursue after he repeatedly helped Naruto defend the civilians of the Land of Fire from those who wished to harm them. He carried with him the ancestral sword of his family, Fury. And he was considered the most noble, honorable and chivalrous member of the Kinsguard. Now that Naori thought about it, each of the Kinsguard had earned famous names for themselves after their exploits with Naruto over the past decade. Takeshi, the Defiant, for his wild and fierce nature. He was also the most stubborn and hot-headed member of the Kinsguard who always refused to accept defeat under any circumstances. Itachi, the Silent Shadow, for his unflinching loyalty and uncanny ability to remain by Naruto's side most of the time. Kagami, the Gallant, for his unwavering courage to face his enemies no matter how outnumbered or outgunned. It was said no man, including Naruto himself, could match Kagami's taijutsu prowess. Makoto, the Dark Sister, some claimed the name was bestowed on the girl for her dark raven locks and smoldering looks. Others said it was because of the fact that Naruto cared for her as the sister he never had in his life, but Naori knew that was not the case. Even if her nephew tried to hide it, Naori knew there was something primal existing between the boy and Makoto. The daughter of a common servant, Makoto and her brother Takeshi were raised as warriors by Naruto himself. They both were quite fine swordsmen and utterly loyal to Naruto till the end. Shursue, the Morning Star, a brother to Naruto in all but blood. The closest warrior who could claim to match Naruto's swordsmanship and the one whom Naruto trusted most. The Kinsguard was actually quite respected by allies and foes alike, for they were the strongest Uchihas of their generation. The only thing that kept them from becoming legendary in the clan was their loyalty to Naruto, who was despised. But never had that fact bothered any of them. They are all good men and women. Loyal and courageous. Naori could not help but brim with pride on knowing that Naruto had gained their loyalty on his own merit and with his kindness. While Madara was loved by the entire clan, Naori had a feeling the support and love of these five was everything Naruto could ask for. And they were here for him. Arena. Naruto watched his brother chuckle as a dark grin arrived on his face on seeing Naruto actually able to match his power. It was a well-known fact that Madara loved battles to the point that he lived for them. But usually, there were barely a handful warriors who could match Madara's powers and expectations. Hashirama Senju was the best, and it was why Madara never missed any chance to fight his former friend. For over a decade, Madara had heard tales of his brother's exploits and skills. Now, he could see the first signs of the fact that those tales were not exaggerated. He made a hand seal, creating 5 identical shadow clones, all of them wielding a sword and a gunbai. Wordlessly, they all charged towards Naruto. Madara saw his brother neither smiled or tensed, he simply raised his swords, coating them in chakra. The look in his eyes was enough to wipe out Madara's excitement a little, to be replaced by caution. He watched Naruto move both his swords in opposite horizontal slashes in open air. Madara frowned. Had his brother lost his mind, or was this some sort of joke? His eyes, however, widened when each and every one of his shadow clones were shredded before his eyes. It was as if they were struck by the air itself and simply vanished. But Madara had seen the real truth with his Sharingan. Those swords, he used them to manipulate wind chakra itself. For the first time, Madara realized this battle would not be so easy after all. Watching his brother rotate those common swords in his hands made him pause. If Naruto was this deadly with them, then Madara could only imagine his brother's power if he had Dawn in his hands right now. Many said his brother was the finest swordsman of their world. Madara wanted to see the fact by pitting his clones against his brother. Naruto had given his answer to that insult by tearing those clones apart before they could reach anywhere near him. Madara finally stepped forward himself and grasped his weapons. Genjutsu was not an option in this fight since they both had the Sharingan which could neutralize or see through any deceptions of that kind. It was purely a match of power V/S skill. Madara took in a deep breath before unleashing a massive stream of fire towards his brother. With his left hand, he swinged his gun by adding a large amount of wind that channeled the flames far and wide. Naruto quickly stabbed one of his swords in the ground, and the next second water erupted from the soil like a tornado, clashing straight into the path of the raging flames. Before Madara could plan on his next move, his Sharingan reacted and he moved just in time as a dangerous bolt of lightning tore through the raging fire and water attacks, going directly for him. If not for his Sharingan and quick reflexes, he would have been electrocuted. He had to keep on moving and dodging as more and more lightning bolts tried to strike him. The initial attack of fire he had launched was now consumed by the water, and there was a healthy amount of that liquid now present in the arena. Knowing his brother and his affinity with water, Madara knew he had to stay well clear from the substance, for Naruto could use it to attack and defend at the same time. Deciding to take the fight directly to the boy, Madara charged forward. More and more lightning bolts tried to strike him, but they were too slow as Madara evaded them with ease and soon enough reached the attacker himself. Realizing the danger, Naruto immediately brought his twin swords forward. Madara grinned as he again slashed his gun by sending a lethal wind wave that would have torn the armor and clothing of any other warrior, thereby giving them grave wounds. Instead, Naruto adjusted his footing, and his golden armor that was gifted by Madara himself protected him from the attack quite easily, much to Madara's frustration. Still, he did not lose heart and attacked his brother. The first time Madara's sword made contact with Naruto's, his brother pretended to push for control, making Madara dig in his feet firmly, only to have Naruto twist himself to the right side, bringing his other sword right towards Madara's ribs. Only the intervention of the gunbai at the last second stopped that attack, but nonetheless the weapon was destroyed. Madara quickly jumped away, creating some distance from his opponent, and glanced at him warily. Those swords of his were heavy, and yet Naruto moved so quickly without any effort. It was a display of pure skill, more than that he almost managed to fool Madara. "You're good," praised Madara. "I'm just getting started." And then Naruto attacked. Stands. Taijima had never once in his life seen Madara being pushed back so fiercely by anyone other than Hashirama Senju. Yet his experienced eyes were showing him the difference quite clearly. He watched Madara roar before charging in with full force. His eldest son brought down the full power of his weapon as bright sparks flew. Madara first tried to get a swipe at Naruto's chest, only to be easily blocked by the other Uchiha's blade. Naruto used the deadlock to take a swipe of his own at Madara, which was swiftly blocked by Madara's metal-protected arm. Naruto smirked. The sword which the younger boy had in a deadlock with Madara's own blade pushed. Madara had to again brace himself, as he now had to keep two swords at bay, which left another opening in his stance. Naruto's right leg twisted forward instantly and snaked itself around Madara's ankle. Before Madara could wrench it free, it was twisted, making the older Uchiha wince, and that momentary bout of pain allowed Naruto to smack his sword brutally across Madara's chest plate, leaving a nasty dent. Madara had no choice but to again create some distance between them. "He's better than Madara," said Tsunade in surprise. "Far better," praised Naori proudly with a smile. Taijima knew his eldest son enough to know that Madara was not one to back down from a worthy challenger. And Naruto had just provoked the dragon inside the elder boy. Madara's hands flew through a rapid set of hand seals, which made Taijima tense, for he knew this move. Fire style, Great Fire Annihilation. A wave of fire was unleashed from Madara's mouth, which spanned the entire area of the arena and even high enough to reach the ceiling. There was no place left to hide from this attack, leaving Naruto no choice but to counter. He has larger chakra reserves which he wants to use to tire out his brother, deduced Tsunade, proving his tactical prowess. He could personally attest to the fact that Madara had monstrous chakra reserves, a fact he clearly displayed when he defeated Shin and his entire clan alone. "How thoughtful of Madara. I have never seen him think so much in a fight before," commented Tobi Shimura. "His opponent is not someone who relies on brute strength. He is faster, sharper, and more cunning. As long as Naruto has a sword in his hand, I doubt Madara can win. Better to tire out the boy before finishing him off." "A sound tactic," agreed Rei Namikaze, receiving consenting nods from the other clan heads. Naori didn't make her opinion known, a fact which was not missed by Taijima. Knowing how close she was to Naruto, he had a feeling she would have defended her favorite nephew. Instead, she remained silent and stared knowingly at Naruto, making Taijima glance at his youngest child. He watched Naruto start rotating his twin swords at unbelievable speeds, and to his surprise, the lake of water that was previously created by the boy had its water now being drawn towards those swords. Clearly, the boy had planned his move quite ahead, knowing Madara would overwhelm him with superior power. Now, the water had taken the form of churning tornado that was swirling around Naruto's swords. It was a sheer testament to his control over water style that not only he was controlling so much of that liquid but had actually managed to give it a shape, binding it around his swords that too in the face of an incoming massive fire tsunami attack. So, this is the famous young dragon, thought Taijima. Despite their differences, even Taijima could not deny that Naruto was highly skilled not just with kenjutsu but also ninjutsu. The fire tsunami was now a few feet away from him, and the boy brought his swords forward, bringing with them the churning tornado of water. Taijima knew that the water attack was not enough to defeat Madara's powerful jutsu, but it was enough to create a small enough hole which Naruto used to pass through the fire. The boy kept on rotating his swords, making the tornado of water act as a shield against the raging fire, and when he was clear of the attack arena, Naruto brought his swords forward, unleashing those two tornadoes straight at a stunned Madara. Water style, twin dragons. In a second, the tornado changed form to take the shape of two massive water dragons that charged madly towards Madara. Acting on his feet, the elder Uchiha quickly performed a set of hand seals and slammed on the ground. Earth style, earth wall. The water dragons crashed against the giant wall with full force, but it didn't crack because Madara had placed quite a lot of chakra to keep it strong and firm. Combine that with the fact that earth trumped water, the dragons were vanquished and broke apart. But they had given Naruto the time he needed. Madara grimaced when he saw two chakra-coated blades slice his earthen wall cleanly. Already it was weakened by fending off the water dragons, leaving them powerless against the force that was Naruto. And now his brother had what he wanted. Close combat. Madara raised his sword as his brother approached towards him and was alarmed when Naruto grinned. Surprise! Bolts of lightning shot out of his swords instantly, and being in close proximity left Madara little room to maneuver. He bit back his scream as lightning coursed through his body, paralyzing quite a few chakra nodes. You want to take my chakra reserves away from me, brother? Madara had fought many opponents, including Hashirama himself. But this was the first time he came across a warrior like his brother. Madara was used to fighting full-blown battles where power was everything and that he had in spades. Even Hashirama fought him quite openly, but Naruto was not allowing that. His brother still fought fairly without the aid of trickery, but he refused to be buelled down in a power battle against Madara. Instead, the boy had his own fighting style, which was far more refined and precise. A fact Madara had to begrudgingly acknowledge as he raised his sword, enduring the shock his body just suffered, because his brother pressed forward. Madara's nerves were still recovering from the brutal shock, leaving him slow in his defense. Naruto exploited that weakness fully. Madara parried a blow aimed at his armpits only to have to react more quickly to stop another blow aimed for his neck. In between, he had to be wary of Naruto attacking him with his feet. The only thing keeping Madara standing was the raw force of his attacks that protected him and denied his brother any gains. Still, Naruto didn't relent because he knew sooner or later there would come an opening. So, he pushed and pushed, making Madara fall back and back. Oblivious to their surroundings, the two brothers failed to recognize the shock of the crowd and that of the clan heads. To their surprise and prior expectations of Madara winning the fight easily, the elder Uchiha was actually being pushed back to the point where he was pouring in every ounce of his power. Naruto, on the other hand, was yet to make any major gains in the fight, but he was patient and focused. As time went on, his attacks became even more precise and too fast to deflect. The increasing number of minor cuts on Madara's body a proof of that. The boys were at a stalemate until Naruto furiously brought down his twin swords right above Madara's head, making the elder Uchiha raise his own sword. Madara winced and sank down to one knee from the force of his brother's attack, and while he managed to save his head, it left him wide open for a solid kick that connected right across his face. Madara's pain made his grip on his sword falter, and Naruto used that moment to break through that defense, carving through his brother's armor like a knife through brother. Blood erupted and splattered across his golden armor as Madara was sent crashing away. Most would have thought this to be the end, but Naruto knew how strong his brother was. More than that, Madara was a stubborn and prideful man, so he quickly moved forward to gain advantage. He realized his mistake when Madara twisted himself so that his legs entwined with Naruto's, and he made Naruto regret the mistake by toppling him flat across the ground. Naruto was too slow to react as Madara grabbed the kunai from his pouch before plunging it deep into Naruto's thigh. They both then scrambled away from each other and looked at each other. Madara was sporting a busted lip and a swollen eye along with the minor cuts across his body. The man's armor was destroyed, leaving him in nothing but his clan battle attire, while Naruto was bleeding heavily from his thigh and he could feel his ankle was twisted. Plus all that amount of chakra concentration had given him a mild headache. Still, they both grinned at each other as if some personal joke had passed between them, until Naruto's grin disappeared to be replaced by a murderous glare. One which Madara masked with his own. And that was when all hell broke loose. Stands. Everyone, including the crowd, ninjas, civilians, clan heads, and Uchiha elders alike, were stunned when the barrier suddenly disappeared as the Yamanaka maintaining it backed away. And then they all saw the cold fury in Naruto's eyes. Before anybody could react, the Kinsguard saw their leader give the nod they were waiting for, and without wasting a second they moved in. The Uchiha elders gasped and screamed when they were forcefully seized by the fully armed and armored Kinsguard. Because they had not expected a fight, none of them came armed, which left them completely open to be captured. "Taijima-sama, what is the meaning of this?" yelled Hotaru furiously, only to have the clan head not even look at her. "Naori-sama, order them to unhand us this moment," demanded Itami Uchiha, but Naori simply sipped her wine with a cold smirk. By now the three elders were in full-blown panic and the crowd was too stunned. It was then Naruto and Madara approached the stands and went towards the three elders. There were a few more of the elders who had fortunately died either in battles or through natural cause during the past decade. Naruto was thankful for that because one of the elders had been Itachi's father, but the man was long since dead, much to his relief. But these three had always demanded his head. When he stepped before them, his eyes were as cold as the winter ice and as furious as the blazing fire. He doubted Madara looked any different. "My father taught me it is treason to raise your sword against your liege lord and his family," said Naruto darkly. "And you abused your power to wrongfully frame my brother, my family," declared Madara murderously. Ayato Uchiha, the cripple, snarled at that accusation and looked at Naruto furiously. "He handed our clan's most prized heirloom on a silver platter to the Senjus. He deserved to be punished," snarled the old man. "And it got us victory against the Senju despite the heavy odds. It saved the lives of all these Hatake and Yamanaka here, or is the Uchiha pride more important than the lives of our own clansmen and allies alike?" demanded Madara harshly. The elders glanced at the said people and saw for the first time the hate and bitterness in their eyes for their decision to accuse Naruto. Madara then glanced at the other clan heads and saw even they were quite relieved that Naruto chose to save lives rather than protect his clan's pride. It could have been any of their own people instead of the Hatake or Yamanaka, and knowing Naruto would place their lives above his pride was an assurance they would definitely need if they were to remain loyal to the Uchiha and fight for them. Unfortunately, the elders had a few points left to say. "Maybe, but Naruto Uchiha is not a part of your family. He's just a common fighter of our clan who was forbidden from any lands, titles, family, or even succeeding your father. Taijima-sama himself banished him, and we are not going against our liege lord by accusing someone who is not his family anymore," pointed Hotaru Uchiha confidently. Her shock was now replaced by a smug smile and she moved to look at Taijima for the confirmation. Gods knew the old man hated his youngest son, which had made them make this move in the first place. In her ignorance she missed the murderous rage that arrived in Madara and Naori's eyes on that remark. "I don't remember giving such an order," said Taijima calmly, ignoring the shocked and betrayed looks of the elders and the smug grins of his sons and his sister. "But you," spluttered Hotaru in horror, and flinched when Taijima's eyes glared down at her. "Is there any proof?" "Any written document that proves that I actually gave the order?" asked Taijima, as he got up from his chair and walked towards his sons before placing his hands on their shoulders. "It's your word against our father's. And frankly, your word means shit to me." "If anybody has any objections, speak now," commanded Madara, glaring right at the clan heads and all Uchihas in the area. He smirked when they all quickly nodded their support, adding the final nail in the coffin. Madara doubted after that match, and seeing what he and his brother were capable of, these allies would risk their necks for three old Uchiha with grudges. "You tricked us," accused all three elders in unison, glaring bloody murder at Taijima. Naruto saw the pure fury that arrived in his father's eyes and winced as Taijima's hand on his shoulder became rock solid. "He is my son," thundered Taijima, making nearly every person in the area flinch. The Uchiha clan head turned towards them all and looked them all right in the eye. "Today, before you all, I confirm again that Naruto Uchiha is my son, my heir, and your liege lord should Madara and I both fall." At first heavy silence prevailed in the air before Tobi Shimura got up from his chair. Naruto tensed when the man unleashed his sword. It was a known fact that the Shimura clan was their most loyal ally, and they proved that again when Tobi knelt and placed his sword at Naruto's feet. The young dragon. All the Shimura clan fighters were quick to follow their leader as they too knelt and pledged their swords. Following them soon enough were the Namikaze, Hatake, Yamanaka, Kurama, Aburame, and Yuhi clan heads along with all their fighters. Naori joined her brother and her nephews as the entire area erupted with a fierce cry. "The young dragon! The young dragon! The young dragon!" Madara couldn't help but smile widely on seeing the sight before his very eyes. More than that, he was happy to witness the moment when their father raised Naruto's hand acknowledging the fealty of their allies, even as a lone tear slipped from Naruto's eyes. Naori saw for her family united for the first time in nearly a decade. Watching Taijima standing there flanked by his sons and their allies standing united now more than ever was not something she would ever forget. Nor could she ever forget just how her brother had pulled this masterplan off. Few hours earlier, Taijima sat in the solar of the former Yamanaka head, ignoring his sister restlessly pacing across the room. She had tried everything from pleading to threatening him to call off the battle that was about to happen, yet he had simply listened without saying another word and let her rant. But he did raise an eyebrow when the door of the solar was bashed open and a murderous Madara walked in, followed by an equally determined but reserved Naruto. "Took their time," thought Taijima amusedly. Taijima got up from his chair wordlessly and walked towards his sons. He stepped before them both and looked at them closely. In Madara, he saw himself, only fiercer and bolder. And in Naruto, he saw his dead wife. Her fire, her beauty, her power, and his own cunning. Naori gasped in shock when Taijima moved forward and engulfed both his sons in a fierce embrace. She had never in her life seen her brother display so much emotion after his wife died. Even the two boys were stunned. When Taijima finally broke the hug, he smiled on seeing the gaping faces of his sons. Ignoring his eldest, he stepped before his youngest and grasped his cheeks gently. There were so many emotions passing through the boy's heart: anger, betrayal, determination, and his ever-present sadness. "I am proud of you, my son." Naruto staggered on hearing those words from this man. Was this a dream, or was he seeing true pride for him in his father's eyes? "What?" snapped Naruto, making Taijima chuckle, which further stunned his family. "I told you once that I would make this right. I keep my promises, just like you keep yours," advised Taijima. "By pitting us brothers against each other?" "Father, you're almost on the verge of tearing this family apart," yelled Madara furiously, but was further shocked when Taijima didn't even glance at him. Instead, his father was intently looking at Naruto and the boy was staring right back. Even Naori didn't know what was going on, but she had a feeling there was something to this which only Taijima and Naruto knew anything about. "For the sake of my mother, I give you 5 minutes. Come clean, or I promise to rip this clan apart, for I will not stand against these injustices anymore," warned Naruto, yet Taijima smiled nostalgically at him. "You've grown into a man." Naruto fought back the wave of joy that wanted to overwhelm his heart on seeing and hearing his father praise him. Despite all their bitterness, all his life he had craved for this. To be acknowledged just like his brothers had, to be looked at the same way as Taijima did with Madara. "You did all I asked of you. You defended this clan and our allies against our enemies. You got me the alliance of two great and ancient noble clans. You turned a bitter defeat into an impossible victory. That is more than I could ever ask from you," explained Taijima honestly. "But you just accused me of losing Dawn," replied Naruto frostily. What he heard next would be something he would never forget for the rest of his life. "Fuck the sword." The boys stared at him as if he had lost all senses, and Taijima couldn't blame them. His actions, and most of all his silence all these years, had sent quite the opposite message than the one he was saying now. Even Naori could not understand what he had been up to the past 10 years. "You're angry with me," stated Taijima, and his youngest son never flinched at that statement. "I am." "With reason," admitted Taijima. He didn't even bat an eye when Naruto growled before grabbing his shoulders and brutally slammed him against the wall. Madara and Naori moved to intervene, but Taijima stopped them by shaking his head. Instead, he stared in those Sharingan eyes and could feel the sea of anger in the boy's heart. Why? That one word was laced with so much pain that it threatened to choke Taijima's breath, but he steeled himself knowing this day was long coming. To protect you, he confessed. Naruto didn't hesitate as he forced his Sharingan to pierce through his father's mind. He was not gentle and ripped through the initial memories in search of what he was looking for, the days after he left the Uchiha and his father behind to serve his punishment. And what he saw made his heart stop. He saw memories of his father staving off the elders' demand for executing Naruto every month. He saw Taijima putting down 3 minor rebellions in the clan before they even acted. He saw Taijima's trusted aide choke on his own blood and die before the clan head as he tasted the food before Taijima did. He saw Taijima watching from the shadows as the elders and lesser noble families plotted against him and his entire family. It was no secret that were many powerful families who wanted to depose Naruto's own family from leadership. That movement had certainly increased tenfold after he earned the name Kinslayer. And they were getting bolder and bolder. He saw his father repeatedly checking the messengers and summoning creatures when they delivered his messages from Naori and Naruto. Despite all the victories, Taijima never showed any appreciation in public or risked aggravating the rebels further, but he also saw the old man smiling and gingerly caressing those letters. He saw the meeting when the elders finally called the motion to demand a trial for Naruto losing Dawn, and while Taijima had no way to oppose Naruto felt the mad fury that overtook his father's heart. Yet he remained silent, but the hatred in his heart was insatiable now. He finally moved out of his father's mind and saw the man staring at him with sadness and guilt present in his eyes. "Why didn't you tell me?" whispered Naruto. "It's a father's responsibility to protect his children. Not the other way around," admonished Taijima, but not unkindly. "What are you two talking about?" asked Madara irritatedly. Naori came forward and laid a hand on her brother's shoulder, staring at him pleading eyes. "What have you kept hidden from me, brother?" Naruto clenched his fists as he tried to accept what he just saw. Those vultures had been circling his family all this time. At first they tried to take them down from the shadows, and when that didn't work they were now coming out in open rebellion. And his father had battled against them all, surviving rebellions, assassination, plotting and whatnot. What hurt more was the man had to do it all alone while his family remained oblivious. But then again, Taijima was never one to show weakness to anyone, even to his own family. Staring at his brother and aunt, Naruto knew he had to tell them what he saw. And he did just that. When he finished, the madness that came in Madara's eyes and the anger in Naori's eyes scared him. They wanted blood. Those bastards. "I'll kill them all," roared Madara, turning around to march down and kill every last one of them. "Then there will be 2 Kinslayers instead of 1, brother," warned Naruto. "You want us to do nothing?" asked Naori angrily, but still looked more in control than Madara, who was on the verge of slaughtering an entire village. Naruto silently walked towards the lone window in the room and stared at the Yamanaka settlement. Thinking about what his father had faced all these years made him shudder. Never in his wildest dreams had he imagined things were so bad at home. To think, there was an open rebellion going on in the shadows in his clan for almost a decade. He glanced at his father and could not help but wonder how he handled this calamity all this time on his own. No one knew the truth, not their enemies, allies, or even their own family, until the elders decided to come out in the open. "This is not about Dawn. It's about me, about us," whispered Naruto. "They want to bring us all down," realized Naori. "If I had showed you my affection and pride in any form, then we would be having a full-blown civil war which would leave us broken. Then the Sinjus would just have to pick up the pieces and finish us off. I didn't remain in contact because I was being watched. I tried everything to solve this mess, but they want us gone," confessed Taijima. Madara slammed his hands against the table, splitting it open. "1,000 generations have defended this family. It has never fallen before, nor will I allow it to fall now," promised Madara. "Neither will I," promised Naruto. "They expect one of you to die in battle. Whoever survives will resent Taijima, and they want to use that hate to overthrow your father. When he and I both are in our graves, they would turn again and see our last family member dead as well. Then they'll have the entire clan in their grasp," said Naori bitterly. "That will not happen." Naruto couldn't help but admire the strength of his father. Even after all these years he was still so strong and formidable. It took him this long to realize, but Taijima had always been the rock of their family. He was not kind, caring or gentle. But he was strong, determined, ruthless, and cunning. It were these traits that had kept them all alive till now. You could have refuted this trial, but you didn't. Majority of our allies are here, you want us brothers to show them our power and gather support. And then the elders, said Naruto, realizing his father's true intentions. And then we will kill them all, promised Taijima coldly. Naruto was left speechless. He had always imagined himself to be a little cunning, but his father was better than him. Neither Madara or Naruto himself had the patience or foresight to orchestrate a plan that took a decade while battling all those challenges that Taijima faced silently without complaining to anyone. It made him feel insignificant and small, for while he was hurt over his father's ignorance of him, the man was busy trying to save their family from enemies that threatened to destroy it. They have showed their defiance openly now. If Naruto wins, then he'll be the next clan head. Same goes for Madara. If he wins, you both are feared and respected by our allies. When they see you in action along with the entire clan, there won't be much resistance left when we move against the elders, suggested Naruto. I don't want the title, spoke both Naruto and Madara at the same time. Taijima and Naori glanced at each other knowingly before looking at the two determined boys again. What are our words? Asked Taijima seriously, and was proud of the cold smiles that arrived on the faces of his sons. Fire and blood. That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfiction. Looking forward to having you on board again.